Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has Mokuton and Hyoton Harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Shodaime, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. It begins. Naruto gasped as Haku stood over him and Sasuke's body. Naruto gazed up fleetingly into Haku's eyes. The ice user gave a look of remorse before he raised a hand of senbon's towards Naruto. The blonde boy flinched at the sight. Naruto-kun, Haku said, I do not wish to kill you. Please stay still and do not move. Once the bridge builder is killed you may leave and live to fight another day. The ice boy knelt in front of Naruto and placed a cold hand to the Kyuubi vessel's whiskered cheek. You have nothing to fear, Naruto. I will not kill you if you do not do anything stupid. Along the bridge Kakashi and Zabuza continued their fight. Kakashi's dogs had missed Zabuza by inches and had been dispersed by a swipe of his Zanbato. Damn it, Zabuza cursed as this time he sliced Kakashi's hand. Aw, did I scratch the poor copycat. The demon of the mist goaded. Kakashi glared kunai at the other masked ninja before him. Zabuza was pushing his last nerves and soon he would have to use Rikiri on the ex-mist nin. What's the matter, Kakashi got teared. Well, if your hair is any indication of your age then you should have retired years ago, Zabuza said as the scarecrow growled in anger. Shut up, Kakashi said venomously. Zabuza chuckled insanely. Well, I hate long goodbyes, so goodbye bastard, and he poised his sword above his head as he leapt at Kakashi. Naruto watched helplessly as the Zanbato sliced Kakashi's shoulder causing blood to explode from the wound. Aw, I missed, Zabuza taunted as Kakashi fell to his knees in pain. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura called out to her sensei who gasped for breath within the mist. Now to deal with our little pest problem, Zabuza spoke, disappearing from in front of Kakashi and reappearing behind Sakura and in front of Tazuna. The bridge builder made a run for it into the mist. Zabuza ignored her and struck Sakura in the back of the head with the hilt of his Zanbato. The pink-haired girl fell faint to the ground as Naruto called out to her. Sakura. He called to her limp form. Zabuza turned to the blonde-haired boy and poised himself to attack. What do you say, Haku? Should I let him live? You said you thought he was good enough to train. Zabuza asked his accomplice who looked down at Naruto in pity and sorriness. Don't care if it isn't a real word. Keep him alive, Zabuza-sensei. He's too good to kill and he is too warm-hearted to ever be a true ninja, was the feminine boy's reply. Naruto looked up into Haku's eyes in search of answers. Well, Zabuza. You didn't kill the bridge builder, but you managed to bring down a legend, a whore, an emo kid and a blondie. Came Gato's voice as he appeared through the mist with many of his hired thugs. So there's no more need for you. We can deal with Tazuna by ourselves, the greedy little man promised. Haku shivered from the look Gato was giving him. Then we will take our leave, was the reply of the masked ex-mist nin. Leave? Gato asked. He soon broke into a large laugh and sneered at the two ninja. Who said anything about leaving? No, dear Zabuza, you'll have to be dealt with and your little servant. He trailed off looking at Haku with ravenous eyes. Doesn't it even bother you that I'm a boy? The ice user asked, disgusted pervert, he called Gato. The short man screwed up his face in anger, but it soon turned into a sneer. Well then you will have to die just like Zabuza here. Over your dead body, came a familiar wheezing voice from behind Haku. Zabuza and Haku turned to see Naruto forcing himself to stand on his own 2 feet. His cuts and bruises healing nicely and his eyes burning with rage. Naruto, Haku spoke as he stood. A knife was thrown from Gato at Naruto. However, it merely landed at his feet helplessly. Naruto's eyes flashed red at his fallen comrades. His hands clenched and his nostrils flared open. The temperature fell with THW ground at Naruto's feet, freezing over instantly. Haku, stop, Zabuza commanded. It's not me, Haku insisted. It's Naruto. Haku's eyes widened in recognition. He's just like me. He is of Hyoton. That's impossible, the masked man demanded at his student as a dragon made of ice materialized before Naruto and all those in attendance. The demonic voice rang out from Naruto's mouth and cold and cruel laughter broke out from the boy. Now it's my turn, the voice drawled. Hyoton. Hyorimaru. The ice dragon shot towards Gato, who became frozen on a block of ice. The thugs around him fled only to be met with the same fate. A spired prison of ice exploded from around Naruto, cutting off his forehead protector, leaving it out full limp in the ice. The demonic voice once again rang out into the world. Oh well, I don't have enough time. It spoke, guess it's back to the seal. Hopefully the kid'll feel pain as I go back. The voice died down as red chakra turned an icy blue and Naruto fell to the ground in front of his sculpture of ice. What happened, he asked in a husky voice. You killed them, Haku replied, not looking away from Gato's frozen corpse or from the dead mercenaries. Naruto looked on wide-eyed at what he had done, fear gripped him. He had lost consciousness and now all these people were dead. If the Leaf ever found out about this then they waddled. Naruto dread to think about it. Zabuza saw the look of fear in his eyes and the look of fulfillment in Haku's. Under his mask he smirked and stood up to face. "Hey kid," he called out to Naruto, a plan forming in his head. The scream alerted Kakashi that he was once again awake. His eyes shot up to be met with the pure clean sky of wave country. No mist at all. Kakashi sat up to view the damage only to find ice all along the bridge. Sakura had been the one to scream and Sasuke looked on in fear. Beto and his thugs were all frozen in ice and Naruto's headband lay limp halfway embedded into the ice spire before them. A pool of blood lay in front of the ice spires. Naruto, Zabuza and Haku were nowhere to be seen. The Hokage stood staring out of the window of Naruto's apartment. Word had spread that Naruto had disappeared in his last mission and was possibly dead. Civilians flocked by the bucket load stormed into the apartment every hour, only to be met with the Hokage and his stack of paperwork. He used Naruto's apartment as a makeshift office so as to discourage vandals. Amura and Kaharu had given him their sympathies when they had heard. Despite common belief, Naruto was actually refreshing the village. Danzo had come along to sneer in the Hokage's face. Which was the reason that the disabled man was currently in the hospital with medics trying to reattach his hand. Sasuke and Sakura acted as if everything was all normal, it however was far from the truth. Sasuke didn't really care about Naruto muttering about how he deserved it. Sakura seemed pretty shaken up and had taken the habit of crying every so often, claiming it was all her fault. Konohamaru had gotten into countless fights over his iniquity. Slander was thrown around the village like a beach ball. The honorable grandson had also demanded an Anbu squad be sent out to retrieve Naruto. The civilian council would have none of it. Greedy merchants with deep pockets and many more ninja were using every law they knew to prevent a retrieval team on going after the missing Jinchuriki. First time I ever wrote that word. Sarutobi began to think back to his talk with Kakashi. Flashback jutsu, fear it, love it, be annoyed by its constant use. Kakashi and his two remaining charges walked into the missions room, the sensei and Kinwaichi looking down in the dumps and Sasuke looking slightly smug. Naruto was nowhere to be seen. "Ah," Kakashi Sarutobi said as Squad 7 walked in. "Where is Naruto?" he asked when no sign of the hyperactive boy was seen. Konohamaru had decided to hide under the table that day and had come blaring out. "Where's the boss?" he demanded. Silence filled the room as Kakashi replied. "Gone." That single word was enough to surprise the Hokage. "What do you mean by gone, Kakashi? Do you mean gone to the hospital or oh no?" His eyes widened and a tear fell from his eye. "Please don't tell me no." Sakura was the one who replied then at that second. It was, sniff, horrible. Zabuza sniff and his apprentice knocked everyone else out. Sniff, when we woke up all that was left was Naruto's headband and all of, sniff, Gato's men frozen to death in, sniff, pillars of ice. The pink-haired girl soon burst out crying. "Zabuza? Gato?" Sarutobi spoke. Kakashi explained. The Cyclops retold the entire story starting from just after they left Konoha. When it was over, Ruka, who had been in the mission's office, threw a kunai at Sasuke, who smirked through the entire thing. "Show some respect for the dead bastard," he yelled as tears cascaded down his face. "Why should I?" Sasuke demanded. "He's just as damn demon. My father told me so years ago," Sasuke replied in a cold way. "Hyoton?" Sarutobi asked. "Kushina's clan," he exclaimed standing up to the filing cabinet. "Kushina?" As in if Kakashi said, eyes widening. "Are you telling me that Naruto is his and her son?" Then that would mean Kakashi broke off, unable to finish, fists clenching, as Iruka demanded what was going on. "I'm afraid, Iruka, that a missing nin now has 2 Hyoton users, and Mokuton user and our resident Jinchuriki." "Hi," Sarutobi growled as his secretary walked into the apartment once again with paperwork. "It's murder bringing all this paperwork here. Why don't you go back to the office, Lord Hokage?" she asked as she glanced distantly at a photo of Naruto. "Because the villagers are scum," was the reply as Sarutobi released killing intent. "And you are no different. Get out and don't come back." She froze in fear before fleeing from the room. As she ran, Sarutobi returned to his copy of Icha and pondered over what to do now. There were only 2 people he could call in a time like this. "Summoning jutsu," he said, biting his thumb and placing it on the ground. A small orange monkey popped into existence wearing a postman's outfit. "Can I help you? I need to send a message to Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin. Tell them Minato's son has been kidnapped by Zabuza Mamichi." Chapter 2. Discoveries. Naruto with Haku as the feminine boy explained the art of ice jutsus. To create ice, a majority of water chakra must be used and a minimum amount of wind chakra must be used. Vapor is the same, only wind is the dominant element, Haku explained as Naruto followed on keenly. "So it's like seam and yolk. Ice has water as the seam and wind as its yolk?" Naruto asked. Haku blatched and lost his footing, landing face first into the ground. When he returned upright, he stared at Naruto nervously. "Where did you get that from, Naruto?" Haku asked, a little frightened that a young kid like Naruto would know anything about yaoi. "Oh, back in Konoha, one of the academy teacher handed out these mangas thinking they were textbooks. It was all yaoi and had explanations in the back," was the simple reply. Haku and Zabuza would have laughed at Naruto's innocence, except they were scared stiff on the spot. They glanced at each other nervously, not like that. Claiming that the other would tell Naruto what those books really were. So, to perfect Hyoton or Hyoton, vapor element, for that matter, you need perfect chakra controller high levels of one of these. You will also need to adapt your chakra so that you can manipulate the desired effect, for example, Hyoton. Hyoton Kaiken. The large mirror of ice materialized before Haku, giving him a clear view of the Tsuchikage Inawagakure at his desk, sleeping with a bottle of sake in his hands. Here I manipulated my chakra on a scrying technique. It can show me anywhere I desired. Even Aunt Sunade of the San and Zabuza jibbed at Haku, who turned beet red. Well, anyway, to master Hyoton you must. Like this? Naruto asked, pointing to a smaller mirror than Haku's. It was smaller, but that was probably due to the lack of chakra control. The glass reflected wave country. What? They named a bridge after me? Holy hell, Naruto screeched as the name of the completed bridge was displayed big enough for him to see. I am so cool. How it went, huh? Haku asked in awe at his friend's mirror of ice. It took me 3 weeks to create that, and it took me another 2 months to actually get it to work. And you do it in 5 seconds. The effeminate boy yelled, getting ready to pounce on Naruto. Zabuza snickered as he poked the fire with a stick. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto had joined both him and Haku, and only recently had they been able to stop for rest. Zabuza became paranoid that Naruto had Konoha Anbu on his trail, probably for the Kyuubi. Zabuza recognized a Jinchuriki when he saw one. He had befriended one years ago before they died, releasing their demon into the ocean. The Sanbi was still at large to this day. Naruto ran for his life as Haku threw senbon needles by the shed load at the blonde. Sarutobi-sensei. You better have an explanation for this. Were the words of the infamous chronic gambler, legendary medic, member of the Sannin and legendary sucker, Sunade said as she stormed through the village of Konohagakure. Citizens and ninjas alike recoiled in fear of the slug summoner. Many did not want to be on the receiving end of her legendary ridiculous strength. Genin from other villages too recoiled. What do you mean my son's little boy has been kidnapped? And by a Hyoton user? By now most of the village knew that Swan had a son who had fathered a boy who had been kidnapped and that his kidnapper had been a person who could control ice. Why didn't you tell me about Naruto? She demanded when she finally came face to face with her old sensei. Many of the natives of the leaf blanched at the news. Through some unknown person, the demon container of the damned nine-tailed fox, Kyuubi, was the grandson of the legendary Tsunade and by extension, a descendant of Harashima Senju and his brother. The first 2 Hokages. Tsunade. Please calm down. Calm down. Are you out of your mind? Tsunade screeched at her old sensei. Bad enough you didn't tell me about him, now you're telling me he's been kidnapped by some unknown missing nin from Mist. What were you thinking, not telling me? It was bad enough you sent Anbu to tell me of his death. Sunade had unfortunately overlooked the fact that the third's old teammates and Squad 7 and their sensei were in attendance. Sunade looked over to them with a face that plainly said, speak and you will be castrated. Never mind your gender. Sunade-sama, please, Shizune, her assistant, begged. Half of Leaf can hear you and most of them are hiding trying to listen in. She warned. Sunade however began to punch the aged Hokage through a window. Sasuke Uchiha walked next to Sakura Haruno as they made their way to Team 7's meeting point, the bridge that they usually got a show of ducks in the river below. Sasuke was brooding, as usual, but Sakura however looked pitiful, staring into the water, thinking of one person in particular. Guilt washed over the young Kunoichi, thinking of how she had hurt the blonde kid whenever he asked for a date. All the cruel things she said to him came flooding back and beat down on her like a ton of bricks. Her pink hair was a mess from not being able to sleep without the horrible nightmares that marred her dreams. It was over 3 hours of silence later when Kakashi decided to make his appearance shunshing in to meet his team. Yo, he said a lot less enthusiastically than he had done many times before when he met up with his team. The silence was awkward. Sasuke had a face of I don't care about the dough painted on his face, Kakashi seemed to have his face set on guilt, and Sakura looked a trauma away from jumping off the bridge. What a pitiful sight it was indeed. I entered you in the Chunin exams. Kakashi told them after 10 minutes. Sasuke smirked triumphantly at that. But you need a third teammate to participate. Elder Danzo is giving us one. Kakashi shot Sasuke down. Sakura clenched the side of the bridge tightly. A new teammate. So soon after Naruto was kidnapped. Hadn't they sent someone out to find him yet? Why? We'll meet here tomorrow to meet him. Then we'll train for the exam. Well, ja. Kakashi said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. About time someone came and got replaced the dope. Maybe this one will actually be of some use, Sasuke said, causing Sakura to turn and look at him in shock. Sasuke. That's uncalled for, so told him. Uchiha merely sneered. So what? Probably dead by now anyway. Why do you care? He asked as he walked over to her threateningly. She smirked as Sakura flinched in fear. Sasuke no longer made her heartbeat faster, now his presence gave her goosebumps. So? Why do you care? He asked again. Why do you care for that no-good loser? By this time Sakura had had enough, and Sasuke's cheek met her fist. Asshole, she screamed before running off in tears. Naruto was dead to her belief, and Sasuke had no right to insult him in death as he had done in life. Naruto deserved better than that. That day was the day Sakura stopped being a fangirl and decided to become a kunasihi after crying her eyes out, that is. Would it help if I said I was sorry? Naruto asked as Haku pulled him along in a cocoon of ice that only left his head free as it was dragged through the woods near the land of the sea. Nope, was the reply from the girly boy. Come on. All this over me learning some stupid technique in less time than you? Naruto whined. What's your problem? What did I do wrong? Haku continued to drag the young boy through the forest as Zabuza made an appearance. Well, we have an interesting find on our hands, boys, he said as he appeared. Funny, he said as he turned. I have a habit of picking up prodigies. 2 Hyoton users, one of which is a Jinchuriki and a demon like myself, he said before dragging Haku and Naruto by himself. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Stop pulling, Naruto cried as Zabuza pulled him by his hair. Haku was being pulled by one of his long braids, clearly in pain from Zabuza's treatment. Where are we going, Zabuza? Haku asked his master as he pulled them closer to a beach where a single graffitied hut lay on a street of stone. There waiting was a girl wrapped in bandages. Her arm, leg and part of her face was covered. Who's she? Naruto asked as they got closer. Zabuza gave a dark chuckle as they reached in front of her. A bag lay at her side and she looked determined, yet uncertain. Boys. This is our new Kunoichi. Meet Isaribi. The demon of the ocean. Hinata stared as Sakura punched Sasuke in the face after insulting Naruto. Had Hinata been any braver even by a little bit, she would have gone and hit that Uchiha prick so hard in a certain area, the council would beg Itachi to return to continue the Uchiha clan. Hinata couldn't help but smile as the Uchiha recoiled and smacked right into a pole on the bridge's frame. Behind her, Kiba gave an impassive face. I know Sasuke probably deserved that, but it is Naruto. Maybe they are better off without him. He suggested before a Juiken strike was put right between his eyes, throwing him backwards. Isaribi, use Suiton again. Haku 1000 up swings, 2000 down swings, 500 right, 500 left, then somersaults with the sword between your ankles. 50 of those. Naruto, keep on trying Haku's demonic ice mirrors, Zabuza instructed. Even Haku, who was used to this sort of thing with his sensei, groaned. A month later and they were aching all over. Naruto had become efficient with the scrying jutsu and kept tabs of his home village. Zabuza jokingly called him the frozen psychic when Naruto actually found out about how he could use the mirror to foretell event in the future. Apparently, the bigger the mirror, the further into the future you could see, and the more chakra control a person has, they can use that jutsu to see into the past. Obviously Naruto had no skill with that part of the jutsu. Isaribi was adept herself in water jutsus. Zabuza remembered the time Naruto and Haku had discovered why she kept herself bandaged up. Naruto style. Flashback jutsu. Isaribi's bandages had been bugging the blonde and the girly boy for 2 weeks now. Naruto desperately wanted to find out if she had serious burns, and Haku wanted to see how good looking she was without the bandages covering her face. The older ice boy got it bad. Naruto and Haku followed Isaribi's trail on the way to the beach down the road from their campsite. When they finally caught up to her, she removed her bandages to prepare to submerge. Haku's eyes widened and Naruto recoiled in shock. Isaribi's leg, arm and neck were all green scaled, part of her forehead and a small area under her eye were all completely green scaled. Wow, Naruto said loudly. Hey Isaribi. Naruto called over to the now shocked girl. Zabuza appeared behind Haku, who stood gaping at the new form of Isaribi in front of him. She was experimented on, you know, Haku, Zabuza told his charge. Done by a guy called Orochimaru and his subordinate Itachi. Poor thing. Isaribi seemed to be suffering from a heart attack as Naruto clamped her hands in his and talked about how cool she looked. Haku, however, was a different story. You know how teenage boys are. So beautiful, he said as Isaribi changed into her fish form. Zabuza blanched at his adoptive son's taste in beautiful women. Naruto art. Flashback jutsu. Kai. Ever since then Isaribi had taken to not wearing her bandages around the campsite, only putting them on in town or when they were allowing someone to come near them. Zabuza didn't want to start a panic and have Itachi's men come after Isaribi. She was too important to his plans to let her go. And she was important to Haku as well. Ino stood battered and bruised on the arena floor. The opponent in the preliminaries was brutal and vicious to anyone stupid enough to mention the one subject that had become taboo around her. Sakura went into a flying rage if you mentioned Naruto in any form of slander. Whoa, Sakura sure is pissed, Choji said, munching on his snacks. Hinata was beginning to scare her teammates with her dark muttering. Kill her, Sakura. Rip out her throat, pummel her into an inch of her life. Beat her to a pulp. Poor Kiba who stood next to her shivered as one of her hands clenched the railings and the other pulled his hair. Hinata was mad again. We seriously need to get this girl a hobby, he groaned as his root began to pull out. Sunade drank her sake silently as the Pincat stared murderously at Ino. She had to add much like those two girls. Angered easily and psycho when need bear kind of girls. Now if only Shizune was like them I could teach her to summon slugs. You need to be tough to face off most of them, she muttered. Another gulp of sake later and Tsunade returned to watching Ino give up. Boring. And Saratobi team won't let me place bets, she mumbled and pouted into her hand. Shizune soon returned from the hospital ward in the tower. Lady Tsunade. All former combatants are well and fine. Sasuke Uchiha is making a good recovery and the curse seal has been sealed by both Jiraiya and Kakashi, she reported. Whooped, Tsunade said with less enthusiasm than Inara. Just tell me when someone is seriously hurt. Then I'll fix him up, the legendary medic Nin returned to her sake. Ah, Minato and Dan both loved their sake, she spoke nostalgically before downing another bottle of the alcoholic beverage. From behind her Jiraiya sighed. Tsunade was thinking about them again. He knew it was wrong to think ill of those who gave their lives for the village, one being his own student who had cursed his son to a life of loneliness just to save a bunch of ignorant and selfish ninja. 12 years after Tsunade and Dan had gotten together and 6 since her beloved died, Jiraiya finally met up with his old teammate again. Only to discover his student was the son of his old crush. He had felt Tsunade twist a knife in his chest even more that day. Koyuki Kazuhana sat on her new throne as the last of her uncle's miserable servants were sentenced to life imprisonment. After being forced back by her manager, Sandayu Koyuki, formerly Yuki, had been forced to stage a coup on her unsuspecting uncle, who now lay dead at the foot of the broken mirror of the Rainbow Glacier. Her heroes stood behind her with triumphant looks on their faces. Naruto Uzumaki. Blonde Hyoton user and big fan of her work. He held a soft spot in her heart when they had gotten to talking. It had been the hyperactive knucklehead to finally convince her to organize a coup. Isaribi Mamichi. An experiment turning a young girl into a monster. Koyuki had taken it hard when she first noticed the green-scaled and gilt skin. Isaribi was a beautiful young woman with a curse placed upon her by some psychopathic bastard. Haku Mamichi. Koyuki had to admit she was insanely jealous of Haku's looks. She had first assumed him to be a girl, saying that he was beautiful. When the revelation about his gender was revealed, Koyuki thought that the young feminine boy before her was gay. Zabuza Mamichi. The adopted father of Haku and Isaribi. Former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Bloody Mist. A-rank criminal. Master of his sword and last of the Mamichi clan. And someone she was attracted to. Come on, she's a lonely woman for crying out loud. Koyuki smirked as Naruto tried to stuff his face with party food from the festival to commemorate the changes to the land of snow, both politically and physically. Zabuza walked over to her and began to whisper in her ear. Princess. A word please. It was no request but an order from the missing Nin of Kiri. Koyuki knew better than to argue with someone like him unless there was something you had which you could use to support you. That thing was courage. Courage the princess doubted she had. Zabuza led her down a hallway and into a small chamber. There he turned to her and sighed. Princess, I need a favor, he seemed to be begging for this. Koyuki allowed him to proceed with and depends on what it is. I need to find an older friend of mine in Fire Country, he said looking down on the daimyo of snow. Koyuki raised an accusing eyebrow at the masked Nin. Oh, what kind of friend? She asked believingly. Zabuza replied, another of the swordsmen. Out of the 7 of us only 3 ever left. One is an Akatsuki, another is me, the last may be insane, so I want to go get him. The woman put her hands on her hips and pursed her lips. Why do I not like the sound of that, Zabuza? She accused. Zabuza smirked under his mask and drew closer to the female daimyo. Because you don't like the sound of me leaving you all alone. It was more of a statement than a flirty question. Koyuki blushed slightly before slapping Zabuza lightly on the bandages of his mask. Just go, pervert, she told him before hurriedly walking out. Zabuza called out to her, does this mean I can leave Naruto, Isaribi and Haku here with you? Koyuki growled before she re-entered her throne room. Very well then, she said before entering. Zabuza chuckled as he watched her retreating figure. She so likes me. Hyoton. Black Dragon Blizzard Haku and Naruto cried out before 2 dragons made of black snow extended from their right arms. The eyes and the insides of the mouth were red. Scarlet even. The 2 dragons intertwined around each other like an amazing dance. Isaribi watched with Koyuki, who was reading the script of the Icha Paradise movie. A face of disgust was plastered to her face. When I find this Jiraiya-sama, I'll make him wish he was never born. Or write these books, or agree to this movie. Bloody perverts. Isaribi giggled at the older woman's antics of swearing revenge for all women because of Icha Paradise. Haku's dragon faltered as he ended the jutsu. He fell onto one knee panting, complaining about lack of chakra. Naruto grinned and sent a Hyoton. Senbon Renden at his older friend. said boy grunted as a couple of senbon hit his arms and legs. "Would you do that for?" he yelled. Naruto continued to grin maniacally. "Because now you're injured and Isaribi has to fix you up." Haku turned a deep shade of crimson at finally figuring out Naruto's plan. "You are so dead when I get my chakra back, Uzumaki." Naruto gulped as Haku wobbled back to Koyuki and Isaribi on the patio of the Great Garden. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to final rounds of the long-awaited Chunin exam," Saratobi exclaimed to the crowd of the arena. A loud uproar of applause sang through the stadium. The competitors of the exams all stood in a line waiting for the matches to begin. Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Neji Hyuga, Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburam, Shikamaru Nara, Damari Sabaku, Ara Sabaku, and Kuro Sabaku. All 9 competitors stood in attendance for the exams to begin. However, one person was absent. "Where's that Dosu guy?" Shikamaru asked to Proctor Genma. The senbon chewing Jonin replied in a lazy voice, "Dead. One less fight. That Sakura girl goes straight to the next round." Sakura let out a sigh of relief before standing back up straight again. It had been a hectic month. Kakashi had taken Sasuke to train him for his fight against that guy Gaara from Suna. Thanking her lucky stars, she would have fought the Dosu guy had he still been alive. Now she could reserve her strength to go into the next round. After Kakashi and Sasuke had hightailed it out of there, Sai, her new teammate, had disappeared with his trainer, that guy on the council called Danzo. Sakura had been pretty much forgotten until Sakura had come across Shizune. When Kakashi had told them that after the Chunin exams, he would be rejoining Anbu, regardless of whether or not they made Chunin. Sai would continue to work on their team and they would get a new sensei. Their sensei turned out to be a Jounin who had been apprenticed and had amazing skills. They had worked with the team after Sai joined and before the Chunin exams to make the transition a little more copable. Shizune would be their Jouni instructor when Kakashi left for Anbu. Unfortunately, that had put Team 7 in a strange predicament. All members of their squad had S to begin their name and their squad number began with an S. So now they had been dubbed Squad S. The only S's they didn't do was sex, S-rank missions and secret jutsu. Sakura had spent the last month training under her and though it may sound bad, Kakashi was a joke compared to this woman. She took her job seriously. She was there on the dot and left behind anyone who was late. They had to catch up with her. When Kakashi told her his philosophy on scum and people who leave behind friends, Shizune replied with Hyocrite and also said none of these, including him, were here friends in the first place. Shizune was serious about their training. Sai and Sasuke seemed to drift to Kakashi during training, Sasuke for the Sharingan and Jutsus, and Sai for help with his painting work. That left Sakura and Shizune. Shizune had pounded into the poor girl all of her healing knowledge and her techniques. Sakura was probably the most overworked member of the team. Poisons and senbons were dancing in her dreams and the constant healing techniques were so demanding, Sakura was forced to increase her chakra supply by Shizune's advice. Hanga spied down from the 3rd Hokage's nose on the Hokage monument. Sakura was bullied into that by her teacher and ended up impressing some foreign dignitaries and shinobis. This of course went unnoticed to her but not to Shizune, who used it as propaganda to raise Konoha's appearance. The next day had shinobi from all other villages visiting taking turns to hang upside down from the monument. That was explainable, seeing as if the Konoha ninjas did it to become stronger, then maybe they would get stronger as well. Unfortunately, a lot of ninjas with crappy chakra control ended up either in hospital or 6 feet under by the time people stopped doing it. It was also the reason why so few ninjas were in the first round of the Chunin exams. First matchup is Neji Hyuga vs Hinata Hyuga, Genma announced. "Everyone but these two, get the hell out of here." The remaining genin made their way to the staircase that led to the observation booth for the competitors. Neji and Hinata stood staring at each other, fires of hell burning into each of the other. "Live up now, Lady Hinata. Fate has decreed me the victor of this battle," Neji told his younger cousin, who merely responded by spitting at his feet. "Shut up and fight, pretty boy." Up in the stands, Hiashi Hyuga growled in frustration. Never again would he let another Hyuga girl train under Anko Mitarashi again. For the sake of the innocence and sanity of the young women. A month ago, Hinata had snuck out of the Hyuga compound and snuck all the way into the tower at the center of the Forest of Death and begged Anko, who lived there, to take her on as an apprentice. Anko had been reluctant to take in any student, let alone a Hyuga whose clan would cause trouble for her teaching the girl. However, after much begging and pleading, Anko finally caved and took in Hinata. The young heiress had actually taken on some of her master's tendencies. She had an array of kunai, senbon, dango and bottles of sake hidden on her person. The jacket was long gone, replaced with a fishnet shirt with pieces of cloth hiding her important and large assists. A leather skirt and shorts were worn. Instead of ninja sandals, Hinata wore black, steel-toed boots and bandages on either leg, and her headband was proudly displayed on her forehead. Neji growled at his transformed cousin. Or was the weak-willed girl with no hope of ever getting stronger and destined to be a weak loser for the rest of her life? Can we hurry this up? I want kick the Uchiha's ass into next Monday already, Hinata said, taking out a kunai at the ready. Up in the stand, Sasuke scowled at the Hyuga heiress. Her defeat him? What a joke. The Curry of Life shop was shabby on the outside but gave an aura of friendliness. That's what Grandma Sanchu gave whenever someone wanted to have some curry. Even missing Mins. Zabuza sat across from his former friend and ally at the table with the strange curry in front of them. Long time no see Raiga-kun, he joked at the fat-lipped swordsman. Raiga growled at his pet name and replied with malice in his voice. What do you want, Zabuza-senpai? He asked accusatory. Zabuza smirked under his bandages before replying. Well, I've been hearing some strange rumors about you, Raiga. Funerals for guys not dead yet. Forming a family of bullies and thugs. I had you pinned for someone much better than that. I give them great funerals. Funerals that they will be remembered for. And what about you? Dressing a Hyoton user up as a girl and having your way with him? Raiga yelled. Zabuza glared dangerously at Raiga. I do not have my way with him. Haku is my son, as is Isaribi and Naruto. They are my little family and my tools for much bigger things than sex. He put his face closer to Raiga's. I'm offering you a chance to throw off those hunter nins on your trail. Raiga's eyes alerted Zabuza of his attention. Snow Country. They have that nice heat generator now. Ice users and chakra armor. Good-looking daimyo too. You know Ikui Fujika's. Raiga's eyes widened and drool began to fall from his mouth at the mention of his favorite actress. She's the daimyo. And well, she owes us big for putting her back on the throne. No more running. Yukikage. Anbu captain. I think we can get her to agree. Even help us against the Mizukage. Oh wait, I forgot to tell you. He's a fake. Raiga's eyes bulged. What? Ever hear of Madara Uchiha? Zabuza said, smirking. Of course. Who hasn't, Raiga replied. Zabuza's hidden smirk grew bigger. Well, he just so happens to be the Mizukage at the moment and a member of Akatsuki. The face of Raiga grew into an ugly sneer at that news. Madara Uchiha. That bastard is the Mizukage. Hook, line and sinker. Raiga would help him no matter what with what came next. Yeah, and the Akatsuki are after one of my kids. So we'll probably meet up with Kisame and Madara as well. I'm in, Raiga replied. He had a few scores to settle with those two. But so tomorrow we leave for Snow Country. Packed on I after you announced to your thugs to disband. If they don't kill them all and to seal the deal, they both took a bite out of their curry. A fact they both regretted the moment they ate it. Raig. Ranmaru, who sat there to the side throughout the whole thing, widened his eyes as the two swordsmen each shot pillars of flame from their mouths. I never knew Raiga-sama could use fire jutsus. Is that how the swordsmen of the mist always seal deals? He asked innocently as the two men used Suiton to regain the feeling in their tongues again. To be a Chunin, begin, Genma announced, and the stadium went into a roar of excitement and anticipation. Neji rushed at Hinata at impressive speed, appearing in front of her before she had time to blink. He extended his hand and arm and began his assault on his cousin. Prepare to fail, Hinata-sama. The sama had not been a sign of respect but a sign of sarcasm. 8 trigrams. 64 palms. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. 64 palms. Each strike was sent with a wave of malice and hate towards the intended recipient of the attack. During the whole attack, Hinata didn't move or flinch. When it was over, Neji jumped backwards with a triumphant smirk plastered on his face. Proctor called the match, he called. However, Hinata had other plans. She yawned. Are you done yet? You're boring me to death. What a silly technique, she said before beginning to inspect her black nail-polished nails. A bored expression was plastered on her face. How? Neji demanded to his cousin. Instead of telling him, Hinata showed him how she had avoided his attack. She removed her headband and scratched the top of her forehead. It began to peel until a large chunk big enough to grab was revealed. Giving a sharp tug, Hinata pulled off her skin. It ripped off her, revealed that her outfit was underneath the skin. As soon as it was all gone, Hinata dropped it to the ground before returning her headband to her forehead. Snakes peel their skin, don't you know, she said as Neji gave a look of disgust. I have several other snake skins like that all over my body, dear cousin. Let's see you try and take those off. The taunt surprised Hiashi, but not as much as her attitude or her snakeskin armor. Don't tell me. Anko, you didn't, both Kurenai and Hiashi said in unison, never to know they did. I'm so tired of this Neji team, Hinata said before biting her thumb. A pity. I wanted to taste what branch member blood tasted like and compare it to a main branch member's. Oh well, I'll never know if there is a difference between the two at this rate. Hiashi felt shivers run up his spine as Hinata drew blood. She did. Anko, you will wish you were never born. I already do, a voice rang from behind him. Hiashi and his youngest daughter Hanabi turned around to see Iruka, Shizune and Anko sitting there with smirks of triumph on their faces. About time Hinata got some backbone, Iruka commented, munching on popcorn. Too bad Neji only knows Taijutsu. Had he known any other jutsu he would lose with some dignity. Anko smiled. She learned from the best. The best what? The best psychopath. Hiashi accused. Yep. Summoning jutsu? Hinata cried. No one, not even Anko or Hinata, expected what came out from the smoke of the summoning technique. In the middle of the arena stood the king of snakes, Manda himself. To summon him, Anko had to save up so much strength just to bring him there for a few minutes. It was then that he agreed to grant Hinata to snake contract, saying she was a much more pleasant sight than Orochimaru and was more beautiful than Anko. You summoned me, mistress? Manda asked in a snake's usual hiss. In the cage's box, the Kazuki began to sweat. Never before had Minata ever called him master. Nor had he ever allowed someone untalented and unworthy to sign the snake contract. But somehow this girl did exactly that. She was the master of Manda and the Hyuga. Manda, I have a meal for you, Hinata said in a playful voice, finally getting over the shock. But we can't kill him. You know what to do, she said, sitting Indian style atop the Snake King's head. Manda gave a dark chuckle and smiled. Yes, Mistress Hinata. Manda plunged his head down on Neji, Hinata never losing balance. He then completely swallowed the Hyuga boy. Many saw the bulge in the snake's throat that was Neji. After 5 minutes Manda roared in laughter, then coiled up. He grunted, then moved away to reveal a little present on the ground of the arena floor. Neji lay half of his body within the brown mess. Fenton ran for the toilet and many of Konoha looked in disgust. However, the Sunanins, most of the Rookie 9 and a majority of Jounins, even the Hokage, roared in laughter at the Hyuga boy's predicament. Anabi had never before felt so much shame of being a Hyuga, both main or branch family. Hiashi sat gapping and many branch members felt tears in their eyes. Tears of ridicule. Hey Neji, Team Hinata called down to her cousin. When the Hyuga boy looked up, Hinata waved. If you cut out all that fate crap, then when I'm clan head I'll see to it that you lose that seal. Hinata leapt down from her place on Manda's head and received a lick of the tongue from the Snake King. Everyone familiar with this knew that this was the snake's equivalent of a kiss. The Snake King whispered in her ear before poofing out of existence. Proctor, call it, she called over. Genma had been too busy either being in shock from Neji being swallowed and raging in laughter at the Hyuga teenager being snake poo. When he heard Hinata he complied, calling the match in Hinata's favor. Next, Hinata did something that no genin should know. She did the leaf shunshin, disappearing from the arena and appearing next to the Hokage. Hokage-sama, may I have a word? I want to discuss politics with you, she lied with a cheery face. Sarutobi narrowed his eyes at Hinata before nodding to Genma to continue to the next match, whilst he stood and left with Hinata. Inside the hallway, Hinata used a handy trick she had learned years ago. The soundproof jutsu. Hokage-sama, you are in danger. Manda-chan told me that the Kazuki is. Wait, Manda-chan? The Hokage asked in shock. This isn't the time. She expressed. The Kazuki isn't really the Kazuki. It's Orochimaru in disguise. He also told me a bunch of ninja are summoning a few of his snaked outside of Konoha at this moment. It's an invasion, Hokage Dono. Sarutobi looked out to where the blazing sun shined into the arena. I have an easy solution to this, he said before turning to the snake holder. Hinata, collect all Jounin and Chunin. I'll go to the school and evacuate all citizens. Have the others do the same. Oh, and one last thing. Shadow clone jutsu, henge. Next thing Hinata knew, a shadow clone of the Hokage stood next to him with a hinged shadow clone in Hinata's appearance. Let's go give Orochimaru a nice welcome home party. Ankuro had forfeited his match against Sasuke and Shino now stood before Gaara. His Kenkai bugs laying at his feet. Dead as doorknobs. Gaara gave the Aburam boy a bored expression before wrapping his sand around the boy. Sand coffin. Shino's screams echoed around all of Konoha as his legs were permanently disabled. Shikamaru's and Tamari's fights will be the same as in the canon. As Sasuke went down for his match against Sakura, feathers began to fall from the ground. Ejin jutsu. Up in the cage's booth, the Kazuki grabbed the Hokage and pulled him high up above the building and onto the roof. He threw the Hokage down to the ground and let him lie there, giving him dark glances. So Manda was correct. It is you, Orochimaru. Had Sarutobi seen Orochimaru's face, he would have seen the pale man's face contort into anger. He had been betrayed by his own summon. Of all the nerve. Sound 4, he ordered. 4 ninjas, each bearing the headbands of Odo, readied themselves on the 4 edges of the roof. One was a Kunoichi with flaming red hair. Another was a boy with 6 arms. Another was a large boy with an orange mohawk. The 4th was a boy with 2 heads. Within seconds, a purple barrier of negative chakra rose up and formed a cube, entrapping the Hokage and Orochimaru. A battalion of Anbu surrounded the cube, preparing to attack should the cube falter. Kukuku, Orochimaru chuckled at them. His pale skin seemed to become purple in the light of the cube. Shouldn't you leaf ninja be defending your home from my invasion forces? He joked. Already taken care of, Hibi team, a familiar voice sounded. The Anbu squadron separated down the middle to reveal Jiraiya and Swan standing there. It had been Jiraiya who had spoken. Thanks to Hinata, we were able to collect all of our available ninja. Your invasion force, sound and sand are both defeated. Orochimaru snapped. At least I have your precious Hokage in my grasp. Sunade raised a giggling eyebrow. Do you really? All I see is a shadow of his former self. Orochimaru didn't catch on to the hint however. At that moment Hinata's replacement poofed away and the remaining genins leapt up to the roof also. Trapped like a rat, Tenten spoke as she saw the snake Sannin trapped within his own jutsu. Is everyone alright? Hinata called, leaping over to them. Hinata, but you were over there and you disappeared, Ino stated. The Hyuga girl just smirked evilly. Wonderful things, shadow clones and hen, she said as the real Sandaime Hokage to joined in with the battle. Orochimaru turned wide-eyed to his captive. The shadow clone dispelled himself, leaving Orochimaru and his subordinates trapped within the cube. The Sannin growled as Tsunade howled with laughter. Well, Achi-chan. I remember a scene quite like this one. Me, Jiraiya and Sarutobi-sensei standing outside a chakra barrier and you trapped inside. Only this time we're not helping you out. We're gonna bide our time for you to find a way out yourself and then I'll pound you for abusing my grandfather's DNA. Orochimaru however smirked before replying in his sickly evil voice. Well, 1 out of 3 isn't so bad. He looked over to Sasuke and grinned. I at least have the Uchiha marked. He began to go through an array of hand signs before settling on the tiger and whispering the jutsu. The sound 4, Orochimaru and the cube of chakra all disappeared in a large bang. The 2 Hyoton users and demon of the ocean stood across from their sensei and adoptive father, a guy with lips that looked like a bee had gotten to them and a kid in a sort of cocoon. Raiga and Ranmaru were freaking them out already. These 2 will be tagging along with us from now on, alright you damn brats? Zabuza asked them. The 3 merely nodded as Ranmaru's eyes glowed red and sparks blew out from the tip of his twin swords. Are you serious? You want a Yukikage? The young daimyo asked as the council pleaded with her on their decision. Not just a Yukikage. A Takakage, a Kuskage, a proper Hoshikage, and a Mikage, a Torikage and maybe Namakage. When Wave gets its shinobi village up and running, the representative began. Do you know the uproar that'll cause when we present that to the 5 great nations? Yuki asked as if the council had been replaced by asylum ditchers and we're willing to cause war. Hey, in the shinobi world a meal could cause a war, hint. We already have the support of the other villages. We just need to make our stand against the Reikage and the Mizukage. The Kazukage was found bound and tied up underground last week. The Sandaime Hokage is stepping down and both he and his successor will be at the meeting. Tsuchikage-sama has agreed. He's only a boy, but he is wise beyond his years, the council member said, stating the facts. If I say yes, will you get off my back about it? What? Zabuza and Raiga exclaimed at the announcement of Yuki. There is no way we are going. Oh yes, you are, the daimyo told them threateningly. But the Sandaime Hokage will be there. He'll demand to know about Naruto, and have you forgotten Mizukage equals Madara Uchiha? He'll know it's us the minute we walk into the same country as the meeting. And you'll be needed to unmask him, Yuki announced to her 2 new subordinates. Zabuza, I want you here to become my Yukikage. Once we unmask Madara, we'll help secure Raiga's place, a Mizukage, she spoke. Raiga and Zabuza were caught off guard by her announcement. We will pave the way for Ranmaru to take Raiga's place and Haku the same for Zabuza. But what about Isaribi and Naruto are their own people. Naruto will naturally be deviated to Yuki or Konoha. And if I'm not mistaken, we'll likely be seeing Isaribi staying here for her Haku Kukoi-chan, she hinted with a sneaky and devious face. Zabuza had the decency to look sheepish at this remark. Raiga however tsk at inside. Ranmaru will be disappointed. He likes Isaribi. No, he likes Haku. He still thinks he's a girl, right? He thinks she's just gender confused. So when is this meeting thing? Naruto inquired from atop of his pillar of ice. Haku sat next to him on his own pillar, whilst Isaribi practiced her chakra control by using the mixture of water walking and tree climbing. Currently she was walking on a pill made of pure running water. Ranmaru was next to her on a pole of lightning, trying to balance himself without losing his chakra control, which would not only make him fall, but would electrocute him. Zabuza sweat dropped at the 4 of them. All only genin and creating their own chakra control exercises. If the newer generations got any better, there would be so many less possibilities for jutsus in the future. 1 wheel from now. Yu-chan wants you all there. She wants to show you off as her most promising genins. Raiga and the students all raised their eyebrows at how Zabuza had addressed the daimyo of snow. Yu-chan. Raiga snickered. Oh, Yuki-sama has you whipped, Zabuza-senpai. Oh, Zabuza-tausen, are you finally getting me a new mother? Although with how she acts you'll be my mother and she'll be my tausen, Zabuza-oka-sen, Haku joked. I'll buy a dress for the wedding, Isaribi joked. Should I book the shrine now or when you get up the gall to propose to her? Ranmaru joined in. It was Naruto who went the furthest so far. As long as I can give the next daimyo of Snow Country their name, I'll be satisfied. To think in a Tauto who'll become the lord of a whole country. We can play the part as their council. The others all looked at him strangely. What? It's not like he's not putting his banana in her donut yet, right? They've probably been doing it since you came back. Naruto, where the hell did you learn that sort of stuff? Rage asked, blushing at the mention of bananas and donuts. It was Ranmaru who was the only one besides Naruto who was not blushing. Even Yuki and her council, who had been walking towards them, turned red at the mention. Oh. Naruto replied, blushing. As a bonding exercise, Kakashi-san had us all do a book report on Icha Paradise before we started any missions. That man is a lifesaver, Zabuza muttered under his breath, thanking his lucky stars he didn't have the horrible duty of telling Naruto of where babies come from. Now if only they could stick him with Ranmaru when the time came. Zabuza grunted as the Hokage and Mizukage stared down at him. All had gone as expected. However, one small tidbit of information was different. Madara had already been revealed as the Mizukage and a new one had taken his place. This one liked people with bloodline limits. All this time he had been fighting just to find that his revenge was gone forever. Well, at least he could hate the new Mizukage for something. A couple of years ago, the Mizukage had been a farmer on the outskirts of a small village in water country. His wife and child both held a bloodline limit and he had tried to kill them. He killed his wife, but his son was able to save himself and kill the mob the Mizukage had gathered. The man had survived to become Mizukage after having a revelation of how bad the bloodline purges were. You can see where this is going. The current Mizukage was Tsukage Kyo. The father, Haku Mamichi, formerly Haku Kyo, Hanzo, Lily, Shibuki, Sumeru, Tazuna and a man called Chishima stared at Zabuza expectantly. They looked flabbergasted at what he had just said to the new Hokage. It went something like this. Wow. Not even the sexy jutsu has as big as that. How old are you? 15? 19? Aren't you a little young and good looking to be stuck behind a desk all day? It was Zabuza's secret ninja art of deception. Flattery and shameless flirting. Sunade looked at him with her fellow cages behind her, sizing up the wannabe cages. Zabuza Mamichi, Hoppeful Yukikage. Lily Kurahana, Hoppeful Kusakage. Shibuki, young man whose father was the previous leader of Waterfall, Hoppeful Takakage. Hashima Tsubasa, Hoppeful Torikage. Hanzo, current leader or aim and hopeful Amikage. Azuna, stand-in for future ninja village, with the title of Namikage going to his grandson. Sumeru was the successor of the dead unofficial Yondaime Hoshikage and hopeful for the official position. 6 candidates each presenting their case for giving their hidden villages. Sunade next did the unthinkable. She blushed scarlet. Every cage or cage wannabe that knew her or knew of her reputation felt their eyes bulge out of their sockets and their mouth resemble that of fishes. However, she did what she did best. Zabuza was sent flying backwards into the wall with enough force to dent into his shape and not send the missing nin from Miss through it. Sunade felt amazing after that. After hearing that he had kidnapped her only grandson, Sunade made it a personal vendetta against Zabuza Mamichi and his apprentice. So you want these 7 minor nations to have their leaders become their respective cages. You claim this will distribute the balance of power equally in our country and help raise the profiles of your village. Is that correct? The Mizukage asked the leaders of the smaller villages. Hi, Mizukage Dono, Zabuza replied. The other 6 village leaders replied in similar fashions. It would help to have a cage to allow us to gain more clients. Villages with cages are seen in high regard, Lily told the others. Lily Kurahana was a woman in her mid-30s. Her hair was as black as night and her eyes a pair of rose-colored jewels. She was tall and thin, preferring to wield a Buddhist staff instead of any normal weapon. Azuna nodded in his approval, but not before shooting Zabuza a dark look. It was because of him that Naruto had disappeared and Tazuna had grown to like the kid, especially after he got Inari determined to become a ninja. Arakage and his daughter Yujito stood in attendance staring down Raiga, who had come with Zabuza to the meeting. He wouldn't normally have been intimidated had Yujito not be winking at him and blowing kisses at the lightning sword wielder. And Yujito wasn't the only person from Kumo flirting, but her father as well. Throughout the meeting, Raiga sweated and shook in fear as the two looked at him with hungry eyes. Tashima was a mere representative for the land of birds. He had basic ninja training, which actually made him the strongest ninja. They're new, so they are sort of weak. Naruto was also there, trying desperately not to look into Sandaime Hokage's eyes. He didn't want the old man to recognize him. Not now, not ever. If he did, then he would probably be tried as a missing nin. Then they would probably take his DNA to make Hyoton using children for their village. Then Naruto would be killed because of Kyuubi. Haku stood there with clenched fists staring at his father. Tsukage became nervous under the glare Haku fed him. To the Mizukage, the boy seemed familiar. He seemed effeminative, but Tsukage just knew that this was a boy, not a girl. It was a gut feeling. And whenever Tsukage looked into the boy's eyes, he had flashes of the sun that nearly killed him to defend himself. We might as well came the lazy drawl of the Tsuchikage. Everyone turned to the 16-year-old boy. His expression was that of a lazy person. You could actually believe that this guy was Inara, only lazier than them. He had copper red hair and chocolate brown eyes. His skin was tanned brown and his messy hair hung in his eyes. Isagi Chiba was the youngest Tsuchikage in history and a grandson of a Jinchuriki. Tsuchikage-sama. Why? The Kazuki-age asked. He had recently been freed from an underground base in his village after Orochimaru had double-crossed him. The only reason he wasn't dead yet was because some of Orochimaru's favorable subordinates had taken a liking to him. Isagi sighed and pointed at the cage one abyss. Well, it'll be tiresome for us not to. They'll just complain about unfairness and I find that all too tiresome. Sunade whispered to her old sensei. You think the Chibas are related to the Naras? She asked. Sarutobi replied with a sort of answer. Maybe. I think the Naras might have been a branch of the Chibas. They're not this lazy. Amazing how someone so lazy could become a kage. So are we all agreed? Usagi asked, balancing a pencil on his finger using nothing but his chakra. Come on, there's a party back in Iowa tomorrow and my Gramps is coming out seclusion for my birthday. I don't want to miss him. All in favor, the Reikage asked. The only one who did not raise their hand was Tsunade. Hokage-sama, why have you not raised your hand? The Mizukage asked his Konoha counterpart. Tsunade gave such a cold stare that, had she been a Hyoton user, she would have frozen all of the land of fire with it. First, I want to know something, she reported. The other people in the room all looked up at her, expecting her to reveal to them a revelation of cage proportions. Where is my grandson? She asked Zabuza. The missing nin blanched. How the hell am I supposed to know? He asked her. Tsunade took in a deep breath before replying. When I was much younger I was married to a man named Dan Namikaze. He and I had a son before he died. His name was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, and Konoha's yellow flash, that Tsuchikage said, not bothered by the revelation that the most hated and revered person in Iowa was the son of the woman before him now. Correct, he was. He died sealing the nine-tailed demon fox into a newborn. In doing so cost him his life. However, before he died he fathered a child. I never knew of this and Sarutobi never found me to tell me the truth. Because we believed Iowa here, she acknowledged the Iwakage was still sore about the ninja war, Sarutobi decided to keep the child's heritage an SSS rank secret. That child grew up with no one. 12 years later that child took a mission to Wave only to disappear due to the thanks of our dear Zabuza here. Zabuza's eyes widened. Naruto took in a sharp breath. Haku began to sweat and everyone looked at Tsunade with wide eyes. Don't tell me that. Zabuza began, never finishing due to shock. Yes. I am Tsunade Senju, mother of Minato Namikaze, mother-in-law to a woman named Kushina Uzumaki and grandmother to Naruto Uzumaki. The boy you kidnapped. Silence followed. None dared speak. Un watching, boulder breaking and Gaara in love. The hotel room was deadly silent. No one dared speak to Naruto. Haku and Isaribi kept giving each other glances of worry as Naruto just stayed silent and continued to look out at the full moon hanging in the sky. Ranmera returned later with a bowl of ramen, but Naruto didn't go anywhere near it. Zabuza and Raiga next door didn't dare to intrude on the kids. Naruto just sat there like a statue. The Yondaime Hokage was his father. The man who sealed the Kyuubi inside his gut was also the man who gave a piece of himself for the Jinchuriki to be born. Why had Saruji-san never told him of this? Sure, it was for his own protection, but Naruto knew better than to blab about something that would get him killed. He wasn't a complete idiot after all. But did Jiji have so little faith in him? Naruto looked pitifully out the window. He still remembered the save Zabuza had given to appease Tsunade. Naruto art. Flashback jutsu. Zabuza looked at Tsunade smack-jawed. Why, you're Narukun's granny? He asked. Damn, you're hot. Zabuza received a smack to the face for this, sending him hurtling back into the wall. Shut the hell up and tell me where my grandson is. And more importantly, where my son is, Zabuza the Mizukage asked. You have an orphan child from Kiri who can manipulate water without hand signs and make ice just as easy. I was nearly killed by a nin like that, probably the same nin, the only exception is he was no ninja before he nearly killed me. That was Hakukeo, my son. Haku held his breath, resisting the urge to throw a sebum needle at his biological father's throat. The Mizukage continued, however. When you see him, tell him I am sorry. Haku was caught off guard by his father's request. This was the man who had, in the past, tried to kill him over something he had no control over. And he wanted sorry now. Granted, he didn't know that Haku was still alive or where he was, but still he did try to kill him. Zabuza sat up from the second indent of the wall before replying to the 50-year-old buxom Hokage. Chill, lady. Narukun's fine. He and Haku are traveling through the elemental countries now. We'll probably hear from them in a couple of months. Or sooner. Haku can't be far from his dear Isa-chan for long, he said, indicating to the fish girl. Zabuza was met again with another slap, this time from Isaribi. Damn, why are you slapping me? It's no secret you and him are doing the dirty. We are not like that pervert. Thankfully this was what Zabuza was going for. Lie through his teeth and have Isaribi cause a scene. Flashback jutsu. Kai. He had a family. A grandmother who was searching for him. Moving hell and high water. Apparently the only reason she took up the position of Hokage was so that Naruto did not have to worry about hunter nins after him or Zabuza. The council member Danzo would kill to have the great-great-grandson, great-great-great-nephew, grandson, and son of the first, second, fifth and fourth Hokages in his grasp. With the new Hokage came new advisors. Ones that could be trusted and who would back her up on disbanding the hunter nins and Anbu after him. That would also protect him from persecution because of Kyuubi. But how far did that protection stretch? A coup could easily be staged and Naruto would be back to being registered as a missing nin. Isaribi left the room with Haku trailing behind her. This left Naruto all alone to his thoughts. Sunade punched her way through boulders. Rubble, dust and slush that was once mighty obelisks of stone now littered the once grassy ground. Shizune, Sakura, Sai and Sasuke stood in attendance to her power. Naruto was alive according to that missing nin Zabuza, but to them, they could tell he was lying. While only about the traveling part. Sunade took it all in as a lie, thinking that her grandson, her last link to Dan and Minato, was gone. Gone from this world and probably dead in a ditch somewhere. Either that or Zabuza had sold his body to someone like Orochimaru for experimentation. Sakura refused to speak to anyone. She was still coping with the idea that Naruto was truly gone. She had held the idea that he was gone, but now it finally seemed to sink in. Sasuke remained silent before walking off. Sakura didn't really care. He didn't seem to care about their teammate, so why should she care about him? All he cared about was getting stronger to kill his brother and that seemed to occupy most of his mind, so Sakura didn't really bother with him. In truth Sasuke was even more broken than before. Naruto saw beneath him. Saw beyond the prim and proper of the Uchiha clan and had seen him adjust Sasuke. He had given Sasuke a way of measuring his power and to see how much he would improve. But without Naruto there was no one there to see him for who he was. No one to test himself again. The thought of Naruto Uzumaki made his blood run cold and regret to fill him inside. The thought of Zabuza and Haku however made him angrier than he had ever felt in his life. They were on his list to kill right up there with Itachi. Sandaime remained in his hotel room with a picture of Naruto and Konohamaru. The poor kid had taken it just as bad as anyone. Naruto was his big brother and his rival. When Naruto disappeared he had been heartbroken. His idol was gone. Kidnapped on his first real mission. Hatred seemed to fill him up whenever Sasuke, Kakashi or Sakura passed him. A few students at the academy dropped out because they could not stand Konohamaru's killing intent. He was barely sociable now. His grandfather missed the constant attacks from the little boy. The only people he talked to were Hinata, Haruka and Sunade, who had become like a grandmother to him. Very many said about Naruto with Sunade, so she would get the idea of how her grandson was like. Haruka also took it hard. But he dealt with it in his own way. 1 week after Naruto's team returned without him, he had asked his old teammate Anko out on a date and had ended up sleeping with her. It was no secret that they were dating now. Anko seemed nicer now, but even more sadistic when she wanted to be. Haruka even stopped showing respect for most people and refused to talk to most civilians who had insulted Naruto. Half of them ended up in hospital because of insulting Naruto in front of Haruka. Anko found her boyfriend's attitude very kinky was the word she used. The day before the finals of the Chunin exams found the Hokage monument painted just like Naruto, had done it with the faces of the third and fourth Hokage more colorful and insulting than the other two. It was Haruka and Konohamaru who had confessed to the deed. It was sort of obvious when one plaque held the sign reserved for Tsunade, another with reserved for Naruto Uzumaki, and in the 7th place was one saying reserved for Konohamaru Haruka. But since then all joy seemed to dry up in the village. Even those who didn't like Naruto and who had even attacked him as a child didn't feel happy with him gone. It was like everyone missed him. Some of the civilians would still talk about him like he was still in the village until someone pointed out that Naruto was long gone. But that was not the strangest thing. The weather even seemed to miss Naruto. It had been cloudy since Naruto had disappeared. Morale even seemed to dip at the prospect that there was no one to cheer them up anymore. Well, as the old saying goes, you don't know how important someone is until they're gone. Bara glared daggers at his father and sister as they talked. Bara didn't buy it. It took him to be locked up underground, beaten and have things done to him to cause him to suddenly love all his children and act like a father. If that had been the case Gara would have done it years ago, but it just seemed too easy for him to be true. In Gara's mind deceit and demons ran amok. But the Yondaime Kazekage actually seemed to be trying. There actually seemed to be something odd about it. Gara remembered the day that the Kazekage had come to Konoha to pick them up. He had received reports from Baki and had decided to talk with the Hokage, ignoring the fact he was still emotionally and physically weak from his imprisonment. He had shown up just after the Chunin promotion ceremony. The Nara boy who had given up to Temari had become a Chunin and so had the Hyuga girl for an excellent battle and informing the Hokage of the invasion. In reality it was her clan who had called that she be made Chunin. Gara had overheard the two Hokages speaking about it. But they were impressed by her. But to Gaara something seemed off. When she received the vest her heart beat faster, her face flushed, and she had pressed her index fingers together nervously as if embarrassed. A complete contrast to how she had acted at the exams. And for some reason in any mode Gaara say her and his heart beat faster, blood rushed to his face, and her outfit caused something to happen to him. She had made him bleed. Actually bleed but not from combat, but from the way she dressed. This was all strange to Gaara who had no idea what was going on. Poor Gaara. The meeting had ended and by the time the sun rose that morning, there were a handful of new cage positions. Kusakage, Takakage, Torikage, Namakage, Yukikage and the Hashikage had become official, starting with its 5th cage. 11 cages stood in front of each other sizing each other up. Sunade looked around her at the robes that had been ordered for the new cages. White for Yukikage, violet for Hashikage, orange for Torikage, cyan for Namakage, indigo for Takakage, yellow for Reikage, brown for Tsuchikage, blue for Kazakage, navy for Mizukage, and red for Hokage. Needless to say, Swan felt like part of a Super Sentai group with all these different colored robe uniforms. It made her feel uneasy for some reason. She also had a slight problem with all of the blue. Cyan, blue, navy and indigo. Was the color blue invading the world by possessing 4 of the cages of the elemental countries? Well, this seems like it is goodbye, Usagi said as he gave a long and helpless yawn after it. How in the name of the Shinigami had this lazy teenager ever become Tsuchikage? This question ran through the heads of everyone present other than the teenager and the delegates from Iowa. Well, thank you for everything, Tsuchikage-sama, Reikage-sama, Mizukage-sama, Kazakage-sama, Hokage-sama, Zabuza said as the 11 delegations prepared to leave. The hotel would be sad to see such a party leaving so soon. Between them all they had brought more business than a small convention. But in 1 hour only the party from Yuki and Konoha remained. Zabuza prepared himself before speaking to Tswand. "Oh, Sunade, I have some information for you," he said to her minutes before they separated. "Yes Abu, I mean Yukikage Dono." The slip-up went unnoticed, but the malice and disgust in her voice was evident. "Just thought you'd like to know, Naruto-kun will be returning to Yuki in 3 months, he's just finished leaving Fire Country and he and Haku will be visiting. You might catch him if you visit." The Konoha delegation stopped frozen in their tracks. Naruto had been to Fire Country. And in 3 months he'd be back in Snow Country. This was too good to be true. That's what Swan believed. "Where's your proof?" she asked snarling. Zabuza quirked a non-existent eyebrow at the fire shadow. "Didn't you believe me when I told you Naruto-kun was still alive? Oh, how bad for you, Hokage-sama. To know you have no trust in me," Zabuza joked. Tsunade shivered at his tone. "Here," he said, chucking a scroll to her. Swan caught it with ease, opening up the paper and reading. The Sandaime looked over her shoulder and his eyes bulged. "That's Naruto's handwriting." Zabuza too-san. "That's what? Me and Haku just left Fire Country and we're on our way back. We'll be back in Snow Country before long, so have our rooms ready in 3 months, cause then Haku and I will be bringing back presents for you guys. We ran into some Odo nins the other day. Haku dealt with them though. Anyway, I heard about that meeting thingy. If you see Jai-san there, tell him hi for me. If this reaches you after the meetings then just ignore the last part. How's Yuki? Have you two done it yet? And how's Isaribi? Is she missing her Kuchan? Sorry about that, Haku hit me. Anyway, are Ranmaru and Raigo alright now? I can't wait to see them. How are Yaon anyway? Haku is dragging me back in time for my birthday, so be ready to give me presents. It's on October 10th. Did you know that? Well, of course you know that, Zabu-san. I can't wait to see you guys again, have a nice time without us. Love y'all lots. Naruto Uzumaki. P.S. Get me a hell of a lot of ramen when I get there. Haku won't let me have any." Sandaime read the letter aloud for Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi to hear. Hinata and some of the Jounins who had accompanied the delegation all stared at the note as if it held the secret to eternal life, which would need to be protected at all costs. If it was the secret to eternal life, you can bet Orochimaru would be after it. If anyone with dark intentions found out about this, then Naruto could be in danger. When the delegation looked up, the Yuki lot were gone. About 3 miles away, the Yuki lot broke out into roars of laughter. "Did you see their faces? They looked like they'd seen a ghost." Zabuza wheezed. Isaribi giggled. "I can't believe they fell for that. They did fall for that, didn't they?" she asked. "No doubt about it," Haku spoke from his scrying mirror as the Goddamn Hokage began asking Sarutobi for time off in 3 months, while Tsunade-sama's asses have grown 0.5 inches in 1 month. "Haku, you perv," Isaribi teased, ruffling his hair. "Lil Haku has a crush on his Itato's granny. Do you know how gaggable that sounds?" Naruto was supporting Raiga, who was laughing on him. "We pulled a fast one on them. Kid, you're smart to come up with that one." Naruto grinned. "Well, this way I can get used to the fact that I have a gran and meet her by the time I'm ready." Ranmaru stopped laughing for a minute. "Does that mean you're going back?" he asked. Everyone stopped laughing and turned to Naruto expecting his answer. Naruto just grinned manically. What kid of person would leave their family behind for people who hate him? Yuki gave a hearty laugh as Zabuza continued to smack his head against his desk. Paperwork. 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 I hate paperwork. Was all that he said between the thumps his head made with the desk. Haku chose that moment however to return into the office carrying more paperwork. Haku, get out of here before I throttle you. The ice user laughed before sprinting out of the room and as far away from Zabuza as his legs could take him. Yuki thought that her dear Yukikage had had enough and settled next to him. Zabuza-chan all nodded up. Is paperwork too much for the big, strong demon of the mist? She asked in a sickly baby voice. Woman, you are one word away from having your head cleaved off, he warned the daimyo, who merely laughed and wrapped her arms around him. You know, killing a daimyo would cause all sorts of problems, she cooed into his ear. And besides, she moved away from him and across the room towards the door which she closed and locked. You would never get to see the whole body of Yuki Fujika's. Underneath you. Moaning. Begging you for more here, she licked the side of his face. A small trickle of blood ran down from his nose. Well then, Zabuza-koi, come get it. The village hidden amongst the leaves. The center of all shinobi activity in Fire Country and the first ever hidden village. Founded less than 80 years ago by the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan. The cultural hub of fire ninjutsu and bloodline limits. Today the Hidden Leaf Village celebrated the one day a year when they remember the founding of their great village. But years ago it was a day of scorn for the Uchiha clan, who when still alive, remembered the day their ancestor and mighty clan were held down by the first Hokage. Fireworks had been illuminating the sky all week and the construction on Tsunade's head atop the Hokage monument was delayed for another week until the celebration early. In the Hokage office an air of joy and happiness was emitted from the room, which is odd since usually Tsunade is throwing chairs and her desk out the window. The lady Hokage herself was acting strangely. She gave off a happy smile without being drunk. She was doing her paperwork laughing at every paragraph, she actually smiled at Danzo at the elders and she was humming a tune which sounded oddly like the Macarena. To say Shizune was scared would be an understatement. She was having miniature heart attacks all over the place. Sandaime stayed away from the office for the safety and welfare of his heart and in fear of his life. It wasn't just because of the festival that had Tsunade all happy and cheery. No. It was the fact that in 1 week it was the 10th of October and tomorrow she would start making her way to the land of snow, where hopefully her only grandson was and where she was going to meet him. Tsunade-sama, we must prepare for your departure. If you leave to collect the Jinchuriki, then you must first be prepared to leave a suitable bodyguard and regent, for when you return, Hiashi informed the Hokage, who smiled dreamingly out the window. Just chill, Hia-chan, she said to him as the other council members giggled at how she had addressed him. The Hyuga head's eyes rose high into his forehead with shock and embarrassment plastered across his features. I've got my bodyguard all sorted out and Sandaime and Kakashi will regent for me. Oh, and they'll be answering Tuchi Ichiraku with any of our complaints. He's my main regent. But he's a Ramen chief. So? He's more loyal than any of you. He sees past hatred and what other people say about certain individuals. Surprisingly, he knows politics and he's there for the most important reason of all. Tsunade answered with a hint of evil in her voice. Really, Tsunade? And what reason may that be? Tsunade gave an evil sneer before replying. Disappointment to regent. Everyone leaned in closer to hear what she had to say. Tsunade's sneer grew in intensity so much that it could be the sneer counterpart to Guy's good guy smile. She soon shouted the answer to the council. Pisses you all off. She began to laugh as many recoiled in pain from her loud voice, before gaining looks of anger and malice on their faces directed at the lady Hokage. Hey, did you hear? That Tuchi guy is gonna be the Hokage's regent. No way, the Ramen chef. What is the Hokage thinking? Disappointment pisses off the council. And apparently the rumors going around about him. You heard those too? Michiraku stopped dead in her tracks at what she had heard. Those rumors. No one had spoken of them in years. Back when she had been a little girl and her father had been shot. It was probably someone on the council who had leaked it out. If anyone found that these rumors were true, then her father would be either put to death, imprisoned or sent away for the reward back to that place. AM had to warn her father. He was in danger. The Ramen girl rushed through the streets pushing and shoving people out of the way, making it easier to get to the stand. She had to get there before someone got smart and drunk and did something regretful. Her brown hair trailed behind her and her eyes widened with every breath. AM was a sight to behold as she ran. Like a true work of art. She was too far away from the stand, so the Ramen girl decided to take a shortcut. It was an alley which led down to the high street and to another alley where Ichiraku was. However, AM took a wrong turn and instead of seeing the other side, all she saw was a black cloak. The poor girl looked up into the man's eyes. She could tell it was a man from the fact that his chest was so flat. AM? He asked curiously. The voice was familiar. It danced in the girl's head like a symphony of yearning. The beating of AM's heart increased its pace, beating in tandem with the song that was whispering within her mind. "You? What are you doing here?" she asked frightenedly. The stranger was about to reply when she started up again. "Never mind that. You have to get out of here. I'm already the daughter of one criminal, I can't be seen as the ex-girlfriends of another." However, the stranger grabbed her hand as she turned. "Who said anything about ex-girlfriend?" He smirked. Am stood there flabbergasted. "Are you kidding me?" she asked, scandalized. "Do you have any idea how much I worry that you're still alive? I have to worry about if they haven't found you yet, and I'm always scared that they'll catch on to you." Tears appeared in Am's eyes. They cascaded down her cheeks like waterfalls onto her jawline. "So you tell me? Leaving me here without so much as a goodbye all those years ago. You told me what you had to do, but you could have gotten away with it, but I heard about it and it broke my heart about what I heard. You left me here and the rest of her rant was cut off as a pair of lips softly crashed down onto hers. The memories flooded back and engulfed her. The first time they met, their first date, their first date, their first time. The marriage proposal. Years and years flooded back before Am pulled away and slapping her ex-boyfriend. "Baka," she told him. "Just because you kiss me to say sorry to me doesn't make up for all the heartache. Come back when you can face me instead of just kissing me." And with that Am ran. Within 5 minutes she was in front of Ichiraku. But she was not alone. There stood Sunade, Jiraiya, Sarutobi-san and Iruka, each ordering a bowl of ramen each. Spirit seemed high with them, but Am knew what she had to do. Naruto dodged Haku's eye Seiban barrage for the 6th time that day. The feminine boy had been ruthless in their training sessions. Zabuza had been teaching to show no mercy when faced in battle, especially in times of war. Haku, however, had taken these lessons to heart and attacked like this in every sparring match, except against Isaribi. Naruto growled out his jutsu just in time. Hyoton. Black Dragon Blizzard Jutsu. The black dragon rose from the ground and spiraled at Haku. The boy, however, was unable to dodge and was sent flying into the wall of the Yukikage Tower. "You'll pay for that, Itato," Haku growled before moving at blinding speeds. "Shadow Clone Jutsu," Naruto cried, multiplying himself as Haku appeared behind one of the 26 Naruto. The ice user aimed a kick at the top of his brother's head, only for it to make contact and send Naruto up in a puff of smoke. He missed Kuchan, the Narutos teased. Haku threw another Seiban at the Narutos until all but one had dispelled. He. "Haku Onichan, you wouldn't hurt your Itato now, would you?" Haku's eyes glowed evil as he aimed a kunai at Naruto. It whizzed through the air. Naruto ducked. And Isaribi had a kunai flying straight for her face. Her eyes widened in shock. Haku screamed at her. Naruto moved his hand as green chakra covered them. A vine spurted out of the ground and smacked away the kunai. Leaving Naruto, Haku, Isaribi and Yuki to marvel at the plant that now began to wrap around Naruto protectively. Journeys and explanations. Itachi Uchiha scowled. He had been in this base for 6 weeks without getting to the outside world. His partner Kisame had gone on a recon mission to Mist. The rest of the Akatsuki had gone to their home villages to see what all the fuss was about. Parties had been occurring for over the past 3 months, and none of them knew that freak Tobi had gone to Konoha in his stead. The dark-haired teen scowled in his room, which was usually much different. He had done some redecorating since Kisame and the others hightailed it out of here. The floor was made of wooden boards, with a red rug thrown over it. A desk stood in the corner with a lamp and books residing on it. His bed was his usual, but No had a red blanket with the design of the Mangekyo Sharingan pictured on there. The jutsu had been used to create a space-time window in his room so he could see the outside world. A series of pictures littered his dark walls. One was of Sasuke, his little brother. Another was of his old charge who he protected in Anbu, and another one which had been faced to the wall. Itachi could not stand the eyes of that one. The calendar displayed the date and all of his memos. 2 particular dates stood out in the month of October. One of them was today. The day that Konoha was founded. It was usually the day Uchiha was given shady looks whenever Thea left their district. Despite the attitude of the general Uchiha population towards this holiday, Itachi always liked it. He especially enjoyed the date since the massacre. If it pissed off his family, then it was even better than Christmas. "Hey, Itachi-kun," came Zetsu's voice. Enter the bored monotone of the Uchiha Slayer called it. The plant man phased through the floor. "You'll never guess what." Naruto poured out all of his energy and time into the books about Mokuton jutsus, which had been taken by the Anbu of Mist decades ago when the man had died. Zabuza had taken them when he had left Kiri and had kept onto them in a sealing scroll. The Shodaime Hokage was the last known Mokuton user of the Senju clan, the clan whose bloodline limit was Mokuton. The Mokuton gene inhabits the Y chromosome in humans, meaning only men have the ability to use this. The female populace of the Senju clan obtain the power of longevity. However, there is also the cause of luck. Random members of the Senju clan will have terrible luck whilst others have amazing luck. The Shodaime had positive luck whilst his brother was only lucky in selling his perverted novel. Sunade Hokage was a pervert. Aku and Isarbi face faulted when they heard this. Our hero is the forerunner of Jiraiya. Don't tell Yuki that or she'll go looking for the Nidame's body, bring him back to life, beat him up, then kill him again. She hates those books and all pervertism in general, Haku warned Naruto. I think that's why she wanted to learn the sexy jutsu, Isaribi stated. She wanted to know if Zabuza was a perv before she got together with him. I wish he was a perv. Those two kept most of the palace up last night. I can't tell who moaned the loudest. Yuki, Zabuza, or the people trying to sleep. The Shodaime's techniques can only be passed down to male descendants. Haku read. So that explains why Tsunade never inherited the bloodline. Her brother Nawaki would have had he not died. The Mokuton gene is supposed to reveal itself a week before the 13th birthday of the descendant. So I guess it was last week, Haku said as the scroll went on to give a few wood jutsus that a beginner could use. Mokuton is really handy. The chakra energist within the power is supposed to be able to control the Bijuu. The Shodaime divided the Bijuu between the countries as a show of faith and peace. The elemental chakra for Mokuton is water and earth. Hang on, Haku, a while ago you told me fire and air make lightning, if fire is the dominant element. How come there are people with lightning-based chakra then? Naruto asked his Oni-chan. Oh, I forgot, you don't know. Raiga chose that moment to walk into the library they were in. In the old day Hyoton was a bloodline limit. However, many of the Hyoton users married into thousands of other families. Eventually it was so common that lightning became one of the 5 elements. It happened with Hyoton and the Snow Country. Haku's clan is the original Hyoton users. I think it was the Haddock clan that were the original Hyoton users, he explained. Naruto's ear picked up at this. Haddock? Like Kakashi Haddock? My old sensei? He asked. Raiga turned his eyes to him before replying. Oh yeah, I think so. Their clan was the only one who could still use the white lightning chakra. However, since Kakashi has the Sharingan, it has overpowered his own bloodline. If the DNA from that eye got into his DNA code, it could cause a race of users of only one Sharingan eye. The white lightning chakra could die out if someone didn't inherit it. Haku finished for his sensei's friend. You're smart, kid, Raiga praised. Normally it's elemental techniques that are divided when the clan members marry off. Dijutsus and the Kekkei Genkai of the Kagaya, Aburam, Nara, Akamichi, Yamanaka, and many other clans can't be shared. Males of the Uchiha are the only ones who can pass on their bloodline, whilst it's the female members of the Hyuga who pass on theirs. Something to do with Y chromosomes. Hey, Raiga Oji, Naruto called after him. What about the Mokuton? Am I the last user? Well, no, not exactly. There's a guy called Tenzo, but he was an experiment of Orochimaru, so he's got the DNA of the Shodaime Hokage. Then there's a bunch of Mokuton users from the Senju clan on another continent. The lightning swordsman explained. So there are people who can teach me? Naruto asked, full of joy. The boat was headed to Snow Country. Itachi didn't care. His target was there amongst the snow. He had to find Naruto Uzumaki Senju Namikaze before the other Akatsuki did. He was too valuable to be left alone. Iruka and Tsunade sweat dropped as Konohamaru ran from a group of ninjas painted pink. Why did we bring him along again? Tsunade asked as the brown-haired pipsqueak used the sexy jutsu on the ninjas he had been pranking. Because you lost a bet with him, Lady Hokage, Iruka stated. And why did you bring them with you? She asked again, indicating to his entire class who stood behind them. You're lucky you won those free rides, otherwise we would have had to pay for all of them. Well, no one was willing to sub and they won't leave me alone. Besides, it was a condition of your bet with Naruto Jr. I think even with this genjutsu I'm going to get gray hairs when I meet him. Iruka-sensei, came the voice of the youngest Hyuga main branch member. Iruka looked down towards Hanabi, who gave of a strange amount of killing intent, which was odd for her age. Please tell that insufferable little worm that we do not need the likes of him running Konoha's reputation through the mud. Tsunade didn't miss the high and mighty attitude that emitted from the Hyuga girl's request. Who did this princess think she was anyway? Damn Hyugas and their superiority complex. But Tsunade didn't like that kind of person. Someone who thinks of themselves above others didn't sit well with her. Oh, Konohamaru. If you paint the ship and knock everyone out, I'll make damn certain you make Hokage, she yelled, TP him smelling. And while you're at, do something special for our little pale eyes here. For the rest of the day Hanabi was unconscious due to blood loss from seeing her sensei nude. The Akatsuki was in an uproar. Itachi Uchiha had disappeared from the base after Zetsu had informed him of the cage meeting from a few months back. After he had heard about the Kyuubi brat in snow, he had hightailed it out of there before they could do anything to stop him. Ain sat with Conan as they overlooked the map of the entire elemental countries. So now the only country without a cage is Sound. With this new development, the other villages have far more political power, and trying to take over one village would be suicidal. We must plan our moves carefully so as not to be found out, the leader of the organization said as he drew lines with his eyes. Conan sighed defeatingly. Hi, Leader Sama, she replied, looking away from him. Ain's eyes squinted into a suspicious look. Conan. Is anything going on? The blue-haired origami nin scowled at him before standing up. Yeah, something is going on. She moved towards the door ready to leave. Those 6 pairs of eyes of yours are really blind. Pain, you have no understanding of women. She slammed the door leaving Pain alone and confused. Must be that time of the month. The gates to the capital of Snow Country loomed ahead. Yukigakure was a picture out of a storybook. Towers made out of an crystal-like substance and warm white and blue houses rode up. The mode of transport was boats which were used on the river which was there instead of a main road. Her image of Yukigakure thing the northern water tribe from Avatar. Why didn't I ever come here when I was on the road? The legendary Sannin, Sunade asked as the class of youngsters Iruka had brought along, stared in awe at the hidden village. Oh yeah. Shizune got seasick. He. Naruto Naichin is here. I can sense him. Konohamaru smiled evilly. I can smell the after effect of an Uzumaki prank anywhere. Sunade's sweat dropped at the display of psychoticness. That kid either needs a girlfriend or a trip to a psychiatric ward, she muttered to Mogi and Yuden, who shivered at Konohamaru's lack of self-restraint on his desire to meet Naruto. Anabi scowled at her classmate. Hey dope. Quit embarrassing us. We don't want the Snow Village thinking we are all weirdos like you. In a pale eyes team. What did you call me? Are you deaf you darn stupid bitch? Why you sorry excuse for a Hokage descendant? I'll pound you into the ground for insulting my family's bloodline. That's a bloodline. I thought it was a disease that came with the sticks up your asses. Tsunade and Iruka suppressed a shared giggle as Hanabi tried to use Juiken against Konohamaru, who was jumping around like a monkey and running around like a headless chicken. So you want me to play your character's son? Naruto asked Yuki as they ate lunch on the roof of the palace. What movie is it? The Princess Gale won. The famous actress Daimyo responded to her knuckle-headed lil bro. You're playing Gale's son who she never knew and never knew she had because she was in a coma when she was pregnant. You're adopted by the Rainbow Chakra Mage in the mountains and raised by him and his wife. An evil smirk grew across her face. Your character is very interesting to say the least. Really? I'm that cool. Yuki Oba-san, I'll do it. No sooner as he said it his face met the tiles of the roof. How many times do I have to tell you? It's Yuki Ni-chan for Kami's sake, the Snow Queen growled. Okay, Yuki Ni-chan for Kami's sake. Are you mocking me? The daimyo growled viciously. No, Yuki Ni-chan for Kami's sake. You better run you lil fleabag. Yuki-sama snow down and announced his arrival in a swirl of snow. Yukikage Dono requests your presence immediately. A delegation from Konohagakure has arrived. Naruto clenched his fists and growled. The day was his birthday and the day he had told the Hokage that he would be returning to Snow Country with Haku after their supposed trip around the elemental countries. Great, Naruto drawled. Any chance of telling them I got myself blown up by a Kaiten jutsu? He asked. Yuki gave him a stern look signifying her answer. You were the one who wanted to meet them on your birthday. Everyone else said that you could have just left out the last part about coming back. But no, you had to give a specific date. The blonde growled under his breath at the young woman and stood up to leave. Well, might as well go meet them. Maybe Iruka-sensei is there with them. Hey, do you know how many are here from Konoha? Naruto asked the Jounin. The Jounin replied. Hi. The Lady Hokage has arrived with one Chunin with a scar across his nose. He was stopped by Naruto's yell of joy. However, what the Jounin said next brought Naruto's world crashing down and 21 academy students, including the Sandaime Hokage's grandson. Shit. At the front gates Tsunade and Iruka's ears perked up. Well, I guess Naruto knows we're here. Iruka guessed judging by the familiar noise the orange-clad genin made whenever something extremely unexpected happened. Hey Naruto Nyasan, let us in. Konohamaru yelled to the boy he saw as a brother. Come on, I've got to show you the new pervy jutsus I created. The next noise that followed was that of a woman. A familiar woman which Iruka had only heard on the movie screens. Guards let him in. They have pervy jutsus. I must have them. Yuki Fujika's had Konohamaru in a bone-crushing hug. Thank you, she exclaimed, nearly cutting off all air supply to the young boy's lungs. These'll show those pervs who's boss round here. Tsunade, Iruka and the class sweat dropped at the proclamation, however wheels were turning in Iruka's head. That's Yuki Fujika's. Damn it all, Naruto and Konohamaru have all the luck. No. Must keep clean thoughts. Anko would castrate me if she knew. Damn it all, Naruto, hurry up. So whilst we wait for Mayatato, how about some tea for us adults and we can send the kids outside to play with some of our trainees. The daimyo of Snow said. Honey, I'm home, the gruff voice of a man called. The door to the room slid open, revealing a sight which scared the youngsters in the room. It was Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the bloody mist and current and first Yukikage. Oh, I see we have company. Iruka scowled at the cage in front of him with enough malice to make Manda shiver. However, the Chunin restrained his kai as to avoid trouble between the two nations. Zabuza greeted the guests pleasurably. Hokage done, Gaki Kor, Haru no Mahatsukai, he said to Iruka. The students turned their heads towards their sensei who had gone deathly pale. Tsunade squinted her eyes at Iruka with a scowl across her face. Long time no see, you damn Scarface, he joked at the Chunin. It has been what now? 7 years. You were only a 15-year-old kid at the time. I didn't think you had it in you. And working with a Makai no Itami of all people. I hear he's in Konoha these days. How is he? The Chunin growled viciously at the cage. Children, get outside now, he ordered. But Iruka-sensei, I said. Now. The class were too far frightened to not comply with the teacher's words. The sound of 21 pairs of feet rushing to the door echoed throughout the room, and Zabuza and Iruka stared each other down in a stalemate. Itachi Uchiha was praised as one of the best of his time. However, he was also told to be insane and slightly neurotic. This neurotic prodigy was currently getting drunk in the ship saloon. It may be out of character for his usual darkness, but hey, even psychos like to drink, preferably because the drink makes them psycho, Sunade being one of these. He had gotten seasick the minute he had gone onto the ship, and despite warnings, all he did was drink and drink some more. The Waller Sharingan remained hidden under his hat, which also hid his stupid grin and red face. He was too far gone to recognize chakra, but found himself with familiar arms wrapped around him. Oh my little weasel. It's been too long, she cooed into his hair. Itachi smirked and her hand rubbed his chest. He moved his head to meet his lips with his attackers. Hello again, my love, he said after the kiss. Itachi Uchiha was known throughout the elemental countries as a man who had killed his entire clan within one night, some rumors even go as far as saying he did it in 1 hour. He was an Anbu captain at 13 and praised for his natural abilities, especially with his Sharingan. What he wasn't known as was a lover. Hardly anyone knew about him and his girlfriend from when he was still a hormonal teenage boy, destined to become the head of the Uchiha clan and an amazing ninja. Everyone expected him to marry the daughter of one of the head council members of the Uchiha clan. But no one expected him to fall in love with his current girlfriend, who shall remain nameless to build suspense. Currently he shared his cabin with her. They remained under the blanket even though both were awake, savoring each other's presence. You know, she began, it was rude of you to send a shadow clone to me. Itachi had to admit she was right, but hey, he couldn't just put both of them in danger like that. Itachi voiced this, but added a few compliments to his lover. He was rewarded with a kiss. Her tongue slipped into his mouth and she rolled over him. Itachi was trapped underneath her, pressed against the mattress. His bare chest rubbed against her concealed breasts, which he wasted no time in caressing. Nosebleed moment. The rocking of the ship didn't even bother them as they remained trapped, their tongues within each other's consenting mouth. The Uchiha prodigy felt her arms spread out. She removed the blanket which covered her chest, giving him a good view. Itachi continued to kiss her until her soft hand grasped his most precious body part. She moved away from him upward slightly, never letting go of his member. If you ever do something so stupid again, she paused for dramatic effect, you will have to rely on your little brother to continue the Uchiha clan. She bent down and licked his neck with her warm tongue. Do I make myself clear? She asked in a playful voice. Itachi moaned before replying yes. His lover once again lowered herself onto his body, their mouths meeting in a warm kiss. That's as much lemon as you'll get. I might one day write a lemon about these two. Might be in the sequel. Iruka stared down the Yukikage with venomous eyes. If looks could kill, Zabuza would be nothing more than particles floating off into the winds. So how are Yami, cute little nephew? Zabuza asked the scarred Chunin. Iruka's nostrils flared up dangerously. He unleashed a wave of killing intent like none before. I am not related to you, Iruka demanded with hate and detest dripping out of his words like poison from Anko's snakes. Oh, somebody's cranky, Zabuza joked. Not getting enough action these days, Dolphy. He asked, being an academy teacher does that to people. But hey you, I get plenty of field time, bastard, Iruka yelled at his uncle. Zabuza gave a short but humiliating laugh at his nephew. I was talking about sex. Academy teachers don't get much of it. I've been hearing some strange rumors about you, dear nephews, Abaz taunted. Iruka was up in arms at the mention of the rumors. What sort of rumors? He asked. Well, Zabuza's eyes narrowed playfully. I've been hearing you've been doing the dirty with someone. Iruka immediately shot back at him. Of course I have. I have a fiancée now and she? Zabuza asked, genuinely shocked. I heard you were dating Kakashi Haddock. He said, bewildered. That's what some of my poker buddies from Konoha say. Iruka's face flushed red as Tsunade looked at Iruka with wide eyes before bursting out into a fit of laughter. You gasp, and Ka gasped Kashi. Gasp, oh that is rich, that is really rich. Ha ha. I was only 16 then and I was drunk. Don't blame me for Anko's idea for a threesome. I mostly did it with her that night. I barely touched that damn pervert. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, her clamped his hands over his mouth. His face turned the shade of red that was usually reserved for strawberries, it was too dark to resemble a tomato. Tsunade, Zabuza and Yuki stifled their laughter. In all fairness, they did manage to hold it in for 3 seconds before resembling the audience of a comedy act, but Iruka tried to input, I didn't mean anything by it. Damn it, the scarred ninja growled dangerously. Stop laughing. He ordered. But none of them did. Iruka gathered his chakra and pulled his index fingers and middle fingers together, clasping the other fingers into each other. He brought his hands to his chest before activating his jutsu. Ninpo. Demon Satan head jutsu, he exclaimed. His head swelled up to resemble a disembodied head squeezed onto a pike. Shut up. His voice rang out all over the village. Heads turned, the Konoha kids looked over to the room, and Naruto fell out of a tree in the training area. Mother. Aku stared at Isaribi's semi-nude form. All she wore was bikini top and a swimming skirt. Her bandages removed and her green skin revealed. He felt a sharp pain between his legs when he saw her green-scaled skin. The fish grill blushed uncontrollably at her friend. He seemed to be intoxicated by her green bits, something that made her hate herself sometimes. "You're beautiful," Haku told her, standing up in a pair of swimming trunks. The pair were in the private underground swimming pool of the Yukikage, which stayed under the Yukikage Tower. It was the place where Haku practiced his water jutsus and Isaribi soaked so she could use her gills. Isaribi began before Haku knelt down and brought their lips together. Isaribi's mind exploded with emotion she had never felt before. "Oh my god." A familiar voice rang out in the pool area. Haku and Isaribi turned to see Ranmaru staring with mouth agape at Haku. "Your guy?" he asked, referring to Haku's chest. A large 4-pack lay above the hem of his trunks. His pec seemed to be something out of a shoujo manga. Isaribi took notice of Haku's upper body and blushed. "Why is there blood in the pool?" Ranmaru asked. "Everyone favorite ninja, Evil Eyes. He is our favorite," was going through a list of greetings. "Hi. Hey Iruka-sensei. Hello Hokage-sama, Yumino-san. Hey Oba-chan. Onisan. Long time no see. Hey Granny. Pleasure to meet you Hokage-sama. Nice to see you again. I don't bear any grudges. Anyone up for ramen? Name's Naruto. Why do introductions have to be so hard?" Naruto asked the Pole he had been imagining as his sensei and grandmother. "What do you think?" he asked the Pole. The Pole remained silent as well as a Pole. "You know you are crap at giving advice," Naruto stated. "Look at me. I'm talking to a Pole." "Naruto?" someone asked from behind. The blonde-haired ninja turned around to meet someone who scared the living daylight out of him. The grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. Konohamaru Sarutobi. Supposed reincarnation of the devil, Naruto bet this was true. The look of pure horror crossed his face as he finally realized Konohamaru was here. "Naruto Nai-san. Prepare yourself, Nuke-nin." The commotion did not go unnoticed by the occupants within the room. "Was that Konohamaru?" Haruka inquired. Moments later a commotion was heard outside. The thump, the curse, the rattle of chains, and a triumphant gloat, followed by the promise of a castration. The doors suddenly were shoved open, revealing Konohamaru standing with Uzumaki Naruto in chains. "Hey Iruka-sensei, Zabuza Tao-san, Yuki-ni-chan." "Grandmother." Naruto spoke up. Chapter 14. Will of Fire, Heart of Ice. The silence was choking. The tension mounted up until it was so thick that a blunt kunai could cut right through it like it was a slab of butter. Haruka looked into the eyes of his one student and the son he never had. Jealousy and rage ravaged his heart and mind at the mere thought of Zabuza Mamachi being Haruka's replacement in Naruto's heart. The Chunin clenched his fists as Naruto took a seat next to Zabuza and Yuki. Konohamaru feared the looks being exchanged between Naruto and the Godaime Hokage. The Yukikage's presence was enough to make the young man sweat in places that he never knew he could sweat before. But it was the presence of the daimyo which really sent him into silent hysteria. The cold hard glare that swept in the room was unmistakably hidden by a smile. Konohamaru was barely a ninja yet, but even he could tell that if Yuki knew how to use killing intent, then the minds of the academy students would be turned to mush, and a life of perpetual torment was ensured. Jinjutsu be damned, none would be able to release a person from that sort of hold. The clock in the corner ticked once again. 11:59, 45 seconds. 11:59, 46 seconds. 11:59, 47 seconds. 11:59, 48 seconds. 11:59, 49 seconds. 11:59, 50 seconds. The seconds ticked on as Konohamaru felt beads of sweat rush down his pinky skin. Fear radiated off him. However, this went unnoticed by the other members in the room who were so engrossed by their staring contest that they barely acknowledged a wet patch that began to form at the young boy's groin. 11:59, 51 seconds. Konohamaru squirmed in his place. Frightened of the building tension. 11:59, 52 seconds. Tsunade's hands clenched into a fist. Her anger was beginning to get the better of her. 11:59, 53 seconds. Naruto's eyes grazed over in cold ice-like determination. 11:59, 54 seconds. Haruka and Zabuza's hands twitched in anticipation. Yuki's lips vibrated anxiously. She, as a woman, knew that something bad was going to happen and that it concerned Zabuza. She began counting down the second to when she knew something was going to happen. At midday. 11:59, 55 seconds. 5 she thought. 11:59, 56 seconds. 4 11:59, 57 seconds. 3 11:59, 58 seconds. 2 11:59, 59 seconds. 1 12 o'clock, 0 seconds. Then all hell broke loose. Itachi had never once met a girl like her before. She was the light that had kept him sane when he was younger. They had met at the Ninja Academy. They graduated at the same time. Both prodigies. When he joined Anbu she became Jounin. When he became Anbu captain, she was promoted to instructor of genin students. They had been with each other for years and loved each other like no other. They had been so young back then. In hindsight, he never should have let his hormones take control of him like that. It had only been one night at the celebration of him becoming Anbu captain, and now he was a teenage father-to-be. By then he had already proposed to her and the child would only seal the deal. Unfortunately, the Uchiha found out. They demanded that the child be aborted. Until someone pointed out that the skills of both parents could allow the child to become even greater, especially if it obtained the Sharingan. Itachi and the mother of his child both refused. Itachi made it clear that as soon as the child was born, he would leave the Uchiha clan and live as a regular ninja. The Uchiha were furious. How dare their prodigy go against them? Naturally the blame was shifted onto the girl. Soon news escaped out about the child and the Uchiha could do nothing to keep it quiet. The entire village knew and support for the two youngsters was sky high. No one cared about them being too young. The second you put on that forehead protector you're an adult. When you make your first kill then you can get married, drink, have sex and make children like rabbits for all anyone cares. They were going to name the child Nariko if it was a boy or Miyaka if it was a girl. They never go the chance. One night when the mother was walking home, Shisui Uchiha met with her. There was a short confrontation, resulting in a despicable act. Shisui raped her. Then he disposed of the unborn child. Itachi was furious. Especially when it was discovered that Shisui was ordered to do it by the Uchiha clan council. The Hokage ordered Shisui be imprisoned, but support came in the form of the Uchiha. Itachi had ran their clan's name through the dirt and they claimed they were well within their rights to rectify the problem. This caused the Uchiha name, and especially Shisui, to be dragged through the mud. No one would take to them and sale prices went up for the Uchiha. Graffiti was usually found on the wall of the compound. Rumors flew around about incest and child abuse within the Uchiha clan. It was also the final straw for Itachi. He was the source of most of the rumors. And he was also the one who leaked out the clan's secrets. But none could ever find evidence to properly accuse him of such. The evidence of the coup couldn't have come at a better time. Shisui was found slain underwater, it was said to be suicide via genjutsu to the Uchiha. In the official records it was known as dishonorable suicide for reasons unknown. A rumor went around that Shisui was gay and had unrequited feelings for Itachi. The Uchiha were furious. And when news of the Uchiha coup came to the Sandaime, well, let's just say that there was an excellent assassin who wouldn't hesitate to exact his revenge. Itachi would have been lying if he had said he felt nothing but a tiny bit of remorse for the Uchiha and his actions. But what he did feel was glee and happiness, mixed with some remorse. But very little of that. If Itachi's Sharingan had told him back then of his future, then he would probably do it all over again, but without letting his beloved get raped by his once best friend. The identity of Itachi's lover will be revealed now. Ichiraku, you all saw that coming. Damn, I was so sure it was made unplausible, though broken, still loved Itachi more than the day they had first met. When he had stolen her lunch ramen on the first day of school and she had given him a wedgie, hanging him from one of the school's flagpoles. It was that day that they became rivals. When they grew a little they became friends. Then something happened. Much like the incident between Naruto and Sasuke, they had accidentally been each other's first kiss. Although more comical with AM's shirt accidentally ripping and Itachi's belt choosing that moment to break and allow his pants to fall down. It sure was funny. AM felt Itachi's breathing next to her. The sound of his soft, smooth and tender breath sent shivers up the spine of the Kunoichi-turned ramen chef. It was sun warm and so him. He rolled over in the bed, his breath now on her naked back. She closed the gap between her and him. Their skin connected softly as she pulled his RMS around her waist. A few moments and she felt something hard and something very fell. She rubbed her backside. Do you like that, he asked her. Damn, she had woken him and Nosh was at his mercy. I thought you'd be out for much longer. We went on for hours last night. She turned to face him and pressed her forehead to his. Aren't you tired? I've got more stamina in me than that. Suddenly a perverted glint flashed in his eyes. Well, I've got more semen in me than what I've already dished out, my love. AM rolled her eyes and pulled herself tighter to her lover. The feeling of the ship swing returned to them soon enough. The ecstasy they got from their romp was finally dying down as they simply held each other. Itachi kissed her neck softly and cooed into her hair. We'll be there soon, he stated. He sat up from the bed and pulled the covers away from him. He stood and walked over to the bathroom which had come with the ship. Want to take a shower with me? he asked, a smirk plastered across his face. He obviously knew the answer long before he had even asked, but it felt fun to anyway. In a dark underground base, the snake Sannin cried in frustration. His plans for the Uchiha had failed. Not only did he not have the Sharingan, but he had failed in his invasion. The Sandaime Hokage was alive. Sunade had taken his dream of being the Hokage away from him, like she had taken his crush's affections. Konohagakure no Sato still stood proudly, and he had been humiliated. The curse seal didn't even reeked. Sasuke seemed to be getting cocky, but nothing else. The Uchiha child was the strongest of the Genin in Konoha, even beating some Chunin. But there were still some who were able to beat him. Sasuke however began to grow more, and power seemed to kill his brother. He would soon be able to beat a couple of Jounin, maybe some Anbu, and then he would go after his brother. He was gaining power, and Sasuke didn't need the strength of the curse mark. Orochimaru had lost his trump card. The Sound 5 remained hidden away from Orochimaru, preferring not to get into a fight with a man in a woman's body. Taiya drank into her coffee with Kidomaru besides her biting down on some fly sandwiches. Kamimuro sighed as someone's head was sent flying out of the room, a snake attached to it. Minato Namikaze looked down from heaven at his 4-year-old son's Halloween costume. It was cute until someone screamed. HHHH. The Yondaime has been revived and shrunk. Evan had a few hours of the roaring laughter of one Minato Namikaze and Dan Namikaze, along with the chuckles of Hashirama Senju. The Battle of the Kings of Water. Water style. Aoinami. Iruka had hidden a flask of water in his Chunin vest and used his chakra to have it grow in size. It formed a wave which oddly enough was the color of normal chakra. It surged at Zabuza with an amazing force. The Yukikage and swordsman jumped back away from the wave to avoid damage. Suiton. Mizuryu. The residue water on the floor, in the teacups and in the pipes around the room, surged at Zabuza, forming a dragon made out of the liquid. It barraged itself at Iruka, who used a shield jutsu to defend himself. The Chunin began to gather chakra once again before attack. Suiton. Shine Aqua illusion. Droplets of water gathered around Iruka before torrents of water gushed towards Zabuza. Using his chakra, the Yukikage walked along the wall of the room before kicking down the door that led outside. With snow being simply frozen rain, then it would be easier for him to use Suiton jutsus. The way that works is that the snow and ice returns to water to be usable in attacks. Suiton. Mizuryu. This time a more powerful dragon arose from Zabuza's power. Iruka was able to dodge it, however, with medium difficulty. The teacher pulled out a set of kunai which he held between his fingers and thumb. Added to each of these were a set of exploding notes. With precise aim and precision he threw the kunai and brought his hands into the tiger seal, thus activating the explosive notes. Zabuza was barely able to dodge 7 of these, with the 8th and final one embedding itself into his leg. The Yukikage was able to pull off the explosive note and threw it away before it exploded. However, the kunai was still in his leg. Had he tried to pull that out first, no doubt that it would have exploded in his hand. Iruka began creating seals again to form another attack. I learned this from the Mizukage's scrolls we got as a peace treaty. It's his favorite technique. At the last seal he called out once again. Suiton. KO style. Deep submerge. Zabuza's eyes widened. The sound of waves could be heard even though they were miles away from any ocean. Sea green colored energy began to form around his hands. He lifted them above his head and pulled his legs closely together. The energy became a large sphere with a single spinning ring around it. Iruka finally brought down his hands and the jutsu shot forth at Zabuza. The ex-missing nin was able to dodge as the attack crashed into a wall and became a disappointing wave of water droplets. KO style was a style practiced by the KO family and a select few distant relatives. They were experts of hiding themselves during troubled times. My father just happened to be an heir to that clan. Okay, sounds ok. Rumor had it that the Mizukage only found out about his clan after the blood purges Iruka informed the cage of the hidden snow village. Iruka continued with his explanation. My father was half Leaf Nin, half Mist Nin. His mother was of the KO clan. My mother, your sister, learned her jutsus from him whenever he visited his mother after their divorce. Zabuza swept his sword at Iruka. The Chunin dodged the attack and headbutted Zabuza in the stomach. Tell me, uncle, are you impressed? Iruka asked him as Zabuza fell to his knees clutching his stomach. What is that head of yours made of anyway? Bricks. Concrete. Anti-Zabuza material. He jokingly asked as Iruka rushed him again. This time Zabuza was able to jump backwards and send forth a barrage of shuriken. Iruka was unable to dodge, but was able to deflect most of the throwing stars with a kunai and his arms. Why did you take Naruto? Iruka demanded his uncle. Said blonde looked up at his old teacher with wonder in his eyes. Why would you want to know that? Why? Zabuza repeated. Why? He then chuckled before replying. Because he wanted to come with me and Haku. Iruka looked over to Naruto, who in turn looked down almost shamefully. To tell you the truth, I think I practically saved him. Had Kakashi or either of those leaf brats you call genin remained conscious, then they would have seen what would have happened when Naruto unlocked Hyoton for the first time. Zabuza Yuki warned, knowing full well what Zabuza was saying, having been told the story by Naruto himself. Zabuza however chose to ignore the warning of his lover and daimyo and continued, all the while forgetting that Naruto was there and the fact that Naruto was scared of any of the leaf finding out about what happened. The fox broke free, Zabuza told them. The academy students in attendance didn't know anything about the Kyuubi, so they believed it was a code of some sort. The older generations in attendance, however, allowed their eyebrows to shoot up and their eyes to widen and dilate in shock. That's impossible, Iruka cried, if so Naruto would be dead and Konoha would be in ruins, and that was if the fox were forgiving. Back in the huddle of academy students from Konoha, Konohamaru began to think and ask questions. Is this fox some sort of secret bloodline limit or super cool power? He asked Hanabi who stood near him. Said Hyuga rolled her eyes at the question before replying. Obviously it must be something related with the Kyuubi. How'd you come up with that? A couple of students asked her. Which creature is the most famously mean infamous fox in all of Konoha history? My thesis is that Uzumaki somehow has a connection to T. Kyuubi, probably the Kyuubi's child with a human man, making him a Hanyo. Konohamaru sweat dropped as he turned to Mogi and Yuden. Hanabi team, you read way too many mangas and stories. Try Icha, that'll cure you. Poor Konohamaru found himself being strangled by the Jukin user. Back with Iruka and Zabuza, the Yukikage chuckled once again. Only the conscience of the bastard. Unlocked Hyoton for the kid. Did you know that Mokuton cancels out the other bloodlines in a person should they come from dual heritage? Now that he's got the fox to unlock it he can use both, pretty fancy huh? Well the kid was afraid you see. Afraid of what? Iruka demanded as he stepped towards his uncle. Afraid of being blamed for the mission's failure. And blamed for being alive. He was scared that when he got back he would be the target of persecution. He told me what life is like back in Leaf. To tell you the truth, I rather prefer to live in Mist with a bloodline during the purges than be a Jinchuriki in Leaf. Iruka clenched his fists in anger. You don't think I wouldn't prefer that either? Iruka asked. It's horrible what they've done to Naruto, but the Sandaime would have understood. I would have understood. Naruto didn't need to follow you. He may have learned Hyoton from your apprentice, but why keep us in the dark? I would have helped him. I love Naruto like a son. Zabuza cut him off before he could say any more. Then why did you never adopt him? Last time we met you said that you had never felt hatred for Naruto. I doubt it would have been difficult to get the Hokage to agree. The boy deserved somewhere, but what did you do for Naruto's well-being? Buy him ramen. Teach him boring facts. I didn't feel ready to look after him back then, Zabuza. Besides I wasn't of age to adopt a child, nor was I the rank. An Anbu is not a stable parent. In Leaf you must be a Chunin to Jounin and be over 18. And I had to wait for clearance off that damn council, Iruka announced, sending another deep submerge at his uncle. And by the time I was given clearance for adoption and was of rank and age, I was his teacher. If I had adopted him I could have lost my job as a teacher and Naruto would be stuck with a teacher who would have held him back just for spite. Suiton. Mizuryu. Suiton. Shine Aqua illusion. The two attacks collided with each other, spraying water everywhere. Naruto stood on edge hoping to find out more. Iruka had tried to adopt him. That fact spun in his head almost like a whirlwind. It bounced through thought and conscience, sending shivers of warmth down Naruto's spine. He had cared enough for him. I tried the best I could. Naruto is like a son to me, Iruka cried out as he also used Mizuryu. So? He was ending his time at the academy, so why didn't you try for the Jounin exam? Compared to most of the stuff you did at Anbu, I hear that the Konoha Jounin exam is just a written exam and a tournament of Chunin going head to head. With how you're fighting now I bet you could have passed it. You could have asked to adopt Naruto or even have him on your cell. I would have had him in my cell, but no matter what the council wanted him paired up with Sasuke. And with him there that meant that Kakashi was a dead ringer for their sensei. Sharingan and all that. Naruto clenched his fists in anger. His knuckles whitened and his face grew into a feral snarl. Even if he had been Rookie of the Year and Sasuke in second, he would still have had been paired with the bastard Uchiha anyway. Why? Why? Naruto cried out to Iruka, who turned just as he sidestepped to Mizuryu. Iruka relaxed from his fighting style but remained aware of his surroundings. The Chunin took in a deep breath before replying to his favorite student. Iruka turned towards Naruto and took a couple of steps towards him. He only stopped when he was inches away from Naruto's face. Have you ever heard of the Mangekyo Sharingan? Zabuza and Swand exploded into rage. What? They both cried in anger. Iruka, however, continued. The Mangekyo Sharingan is the final stage of the Sharingan. It can only be accessed by possessors of the Sharingan, usually Uchiha, with exceptions like Kakashi. Anyway, the Mangekyo can only be activated if the wielder suffers from deep emotional stress and titanic levels of grief and guilt. It has usually been activated in the past by Iruka found it hard to continue, but Sunade found strength in her anger. By killing your own best friend. She announced. The world could have exploded then and there, and Naruto would never have noticed. In his mind's eye he saw Sasuke with his back to him. The apparition got closer until Sasuke turned around with a kunai and stabbed at what Naruto believed to be himself. The Rigwaler Sharingan morphing into that of a twisted red eye. Note. Itachi, Kakashi and Sasuke all have different Mangekyo. I think it's because it's unique in appearance to whomever the user is. Iruka continued explaining to Naruto. You see Naruto, you have a special gift. A power if you will. It allows you to make friends easily, probably with enemies too I'd bet. The council were planning on using this so you would befriend Sasuke, then when the time was right, he would kill you, taking the Kyuubi out also. Killing two birds with one stone. That's why I sometimes encouraged you to dislike Sasuke hoping the council's plan would never have a chance of fruition. And as for me adopting you as a jounin, that was out of the question. Sunade who had been silent through most of the confrontation and most of this chapter, poor Tsutsu, spoke up with anger and hatred. Why not Iruka? Answer me that. Why not? Iruka looked into her brown eyes and guilt swelled up inside of him. A single tear ran down his cheek. Because he began I found out the reason why the jounin exam was moved up to October 10th by the council. A secret third exam. Used only for academy teachers in recent years here Iruka stopped and swallowed before a tear fell from his eyes. Fox hunting. Ultimatum. The village hidden in the leaves stirred to a clear and sunny morning. The residents of the ninja town began to leave the confines of their homes to meet in the marketplace, go to work, chat with friends, go shopping, have breakfast in a nearby restaurant, report to the Hokage, or acting Hokage as Tsunade was still in snow country, or just to have a lazy wander around town. 4 figures currently occupied training frowned 7. One was a jounin woman. She was fairly attractive, with short black hair and oil-colored eyes, well they were more like charcoal and ebony than oil. She wore the standard jounin uniform, bandages around the calves, blue ninja sandals, navy pants and shirt, and a dark green jounin vest around her top half. Her sleeves were long and extended far beyond her hands. The second was another ebony-haired person. A boy with hair shaped like the rear end of a duck and a pair of duck-like wings for bangs, running down the side of his face. His skin was pale and his eyes as dark as night. He wore leg bracers and bandages around his calves and forearms. A pair of white shorts covered his bottom half and a blue high-collared t-shirt with the Uchiha fan adorned his upper body. The third was a young man with loose and short black hair. He too had black eyes, yet his skin was as white as snow. He wore mostly black, a black pair of ninja sandals, the standard shinobi trousers which revealed the bottom of the legs, in black. His top was once again black and resembled the older woman's, yet a pair of paintbrushes hung from the mouths of the sleeves. The final member was another young woman. Out of all of them she could be considered the odd one out. Her hair was a rosy pink, resembling the flower which shared her name. Her eyes were simply pieces of jade and her skin pink tinted and cute. She wore a red kunoichi dress which cut at the hip downwards, black shorts, and a pair of blue shinobi sandals with bandages around her calves. Team S was currently in the middle of a teamwork exercise. Shizune held it once a week and each week they would go from one team member's interest to the other. With Sai it was easy. They would just paint whatever they felt like then give a description about what they felt. Shizune had then cook using her cookbooks. The maiden and apprentice to the great Sannin Swan had a talent for cooking, how else would she and Tsunade survive that long with the Sannin's atrociously high gambling debts? Sakura had then read. However it was in textbooks. Who knew Sakura was a sucker for yaoi novels? It was currently week 3, Sasuke's week. And they were all currently going through a chat session. It was like group therapy. The young Uchiha had been unable to propose training as his sport, and not wanting to have Team S think he was into some sort of pornography or household art, he decided that since therapy sessions had stopped for him a while back, he decided that that was the solution to his problems. Each person took turns talking about something that had happened in their lives so far. Today Sakura told everyone how she had been picked on as a child because of her overly large forehead, something she had been proud of since she got it from her father, who had been beheaded when he tried to stop a Rouge-nin from escaping. Sai told everyone how when he was a child Danzo's older members of Root, usually the ones in their 20s or 30s would come in, select a child, usually it would be one of the same gender, and they would be taken away, only to return later on with bruises and a limp. Danzo had said it was to quench the thirst of their raging hormones before they took more powerful forms. Shizune had been horrified and made a mental note to report to the 2 Hokages about Danzo's operations. Shizune explained about her uncle Dan and how he had been a huge influence on her life. Then she went on to talk about her bisexuality. This caught the 3 off guard. She went on to talk about a one-night stand with Anko, then a threesome with Anko and Iruka, then a couple with Kakashi, a guy called Tenzo and Anbu, the proctor for the Chunin exams, Genma, and then her few times with Kurenai. By the time she was finished, Sasuke and Sai had gotten small nosebleeds from a couple of descriptions, and Sakura felt like fainting until she started talking about what was under Kakashi's mask and how big Iruka was. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sakura is a female version of Ibisu. And Sasuke, well, he had finished talking about Itachi and his clan a while ago and had moved on to talking about a subject Sakura found touchy. Naruto. Sasuke refused to believe that Naruto would just up and leave the village like that. There had to be a reason. He had been snooping around a bot and hadn't found out anything about Naruto. Until he had hinged into Shizune and had snuck into the records room in the Hokage Tower. Shizune and Sakura had been shocked by this, well Shizune was until Sasuke mentioned how he had liked seeing Shizune in the mirror every time he passed the Hokage lobby. What have you been taking? Lessons of pervertism from Kakashi? Sakura had screeched. Well, I did find out something about Naruto, Sasuke told her when she asked. This silenced her until Sasuke spoke once again. Did you guys know that ever since Iruka became an academy teacher, the Jounin exam has had a secret test for all previous academy teacher? Fox hunting. It revolved around the Jounin Hopefuls from T Academy staff jazzing Naruto around town at sunrise on October 11th after the celebration of the Kyuubi's defeat. I also learned that Naruto's mother is originally from Whirlpool, though her mother was from Mist, the Nidaime Mizukage in fact. So Naruto is a descendant of the Shodaime Hokage, Nidaime Mizukage, Godaime Hokage and the son of the Yondaime Hokage. That's about 5 Kage relations, yeah. And not to mention that he wasn't supposed to be a Konohinin, Sasuke pointed out. What do you mean, Sasuke? The pink-haired Kunoichi asked. Sasuke took in a deep breath before answering. Naruto was supposed to grow up in Yuzugakure, not Konohagakure. They were told he was dead. His grandfather was furious when he found out. It was written in his mother's will that he live in Yuzu, so why didn't he? Counsel, Sasuke replied. The guy was kept here for unknown reasons. I bet you if Naruto found out, he'd be in Whirlpool before we even thought he would leave. But Whirlpool was wiped out a while ago in a freak tsunami. Anyway, Sasuke, what else about Naruto do you want to talk about? Or is there something else? Shizune asked him. Sasuke sighed and looked down. I know that one of the main reasons why Naruto left was because of me. Sai snorted and smiled. You sure do have a high opinion of yourself, Sasuke. The raven-haired Uchiha ignored him and continued on. If I hadn't always been putting him down and making fun of him, well, I mocked him when he was unable to beat the demon brothers and I made fun of him for not doing the tree climbing right, especially after I saved him. It's not only that but all the time back at the academy I made fun of him for being a dope, but looking back, I see Naruto wasn't retarded or stupid or an idiot, he just didn't have anyone to tell him about what he needed to know. And when he was in class it was like he was just trying to get to what we could get without even trying. If I had known Naruto would have done something like this, you wouldn't have said those things to him. Silence followed on from that. A couple of hours later Shizune was back at the hospital working with some of her fellow med-nins. With Tsunade still in Snow Country she was head of the hospital and was to make sure that everything went smoothly while her teacher was gone to find her long-lost grandson and Shizune's second cousin if you want to get technical. The young dark-haired woman sourly found herself bored and not doing anything. She rarely had patience unless they were emergencies or her friends needed a private examination. Shizune wasn't the kind of girl to pass up free relaxation time, but today was just a time when she needed something to do. With the therapy sessions as Sasuke's version of teamwork exercises, she was left with nothing to do for most of the day and she rather preferred to be doing something other than nothing. Right now Shizune was begging for something to do, even if it meant wait. Scratch that. It was only then after 20 minutes that her prayers were answered. Anko came to visit and asked for a checkup. Shizune looked at her curiously. Why do you want a checkup, Anko? She asked her friend intrigued. As far as her knowledge went, Anko had only come in for a hospital appointment once after she got back from Orochimaru and had never stepped foot in one since. And that was a good few years ago. Anko grunted angrily. For a while now, I've been feeling sick. In the mornings I've been puking my guts out, I need the bathroom most of the time, I feel like watermelons and they ache like there's no tomorrow. Shizune's eyebrows rose up beyond her fringe. But Anko continued, and I'm eating like a maniac. And not to mention I'm smelling stuff like some damn mud and everything tastes much stronger. Shizune fought back not to laugh, failing miserably. Anko noticed this and narrowed her eyes accusingly. You know something, don't you? She growled. Shizune giggled a little before asking a question. Do you remember the health class you took back in the academy? Anko blushed a bit and growled furiously. I was asleep that day. So what does it mean? Shizune rolled her eyes before walking over to where Anko stood. Just let me check, okay? Shizune told her. Anko nodded begrudgingly. Shizune squatted down to see Anko's stomach, placing a glowing hand over it. Within second the glowing green chakra focused into a single line going across Anko's stomach. Shizune smiled knowingly and stood back up. Well, I suggest you name it something special. Why would I name it? Anko asked confusing. Don't you know those symptoms are? The plague. It's the plague, isn't it, Shiz? Oh god, am I going to die? Shizune blanched. She could not believe what she had just heard. Shizune sighed before speaking once again. Anko, when and who was the last person you had sex with? Anko looked at her strangely. I thought you'd be asking about details soon enough. Anko grinned. Well, a couple of weeks ago before Iruka left, he does this amazing thing with his tongue. Of course I don't have to tell you that, remember our little experiment a while ago, you were all over him. Anko, I just want to know who and when, Shizune said with a tick on her forehead. Anko recoiled in fear. An angry Shizune was only a step down from an angry Tsunade. A couple of weeks ago. I know long, but me and Iruka want to keep it together and I don't want to go with other guys while he's gone. I really do love him, Shiz Konoha's snake mistress confessed. Shizune looked at her with pride. Aw, our little Anko is finally all grown up. She's fallen in love, Shizune teased. Shut up, Shiz. Are you going to tell me what's wrong or am I gonna have to castrate every guy you date in future? Anko, Shizune giggled. Do you remember the birds and the bees? Of course I do. Then you'll know about what can come from sex. Anko looked at her confused before Shizune slapped her own face in frustration. Oh, for the love God, you're pregnant. As in soon-to-be mother. As in Iruka's kid. Baby ninja running around in 9 months. Me being auntie. Anko, you are going to have a baby. The screams of Anko were heard throughout most of the village. However, none could distinguish if they were screams of joy, terror, or a battle cry, as Anko was soon found chasing Shizune around the village. Naruto stood there in shock. Fox hunting hit him hard. He remembered on his birthday each year he was chased by several Chunin Academy teachers, and whomever managed to beat him into a bloody pulp was later found to have risen to Jounin rank. What Iruka had announced finally made some sense. He had been the secret final exam for Jounin hopefuls who used to teach at the academy. Naruto, that was why I didn't try for Jounin while you were still in the academy. I had to quit before I tried to increase rank and before I could you had disappeared. Naruto, you're like a son to me, more than that you are son to me. I care about you. Do you think I would be here if I didn't? Iruka's words cut through Naruto, who was slowly slipping out of control of the raging beast within. Naruto clenched his fists tightly and growled fiercely. His canines grew longer and sharper, his eyes turned from their normal calm blue into a ferocious red. His whisker marks became darker and more defined. Iruka was expecting Naruto to cry out in anger or rage, however all he did was smirk. Zabuza's eyes widened in recognition. Naruto style. Flashback jutsu. Naruto gasped as Haku stood over him and Sasuke's body. Naruto gazed up fleetingly into Haku's eyes. The ice user gave a look of remorse before he raised a hand of senbon's towards Naruto. The blonde boy flinched at the sight. Naruto-kun, Haku said, I do not wish to kill you. Please stay still and do not move. Once the bridge builder is killed you may leave and live to fight another day. The ice boy knelt in front of Naruto and placed a cold hand to the Kyuubi vessel's whiskered cheek. You have nothing to fear, Naruto. I will not kill you if you do not do anything stupid. Along the bridge Kakashi and Zabuza continued their fight. Kakashi's dogs had missed Zabuza by inches and had been dispersed by a swipe of his Zanbato. Damn mutt, Zabuza cursed as this time he sliced Kakashi's hand. Aw, did I scratch the poor copycat. The demon of the mist goaded. Kakashi glared kunai at the other masked ninja before him. Zabuza was pushing his last nerves and soon he would have to use Rikiri on the ex-mist nin. What's the matter, Kakashi got teared. Well, if your hair is any indication of your age then you should have retired years ago, Zabuza said as the scarecrow growled in anger. Shut up, Kakashi said venomously. Zabuza chuckled insanely. Well, I hate long goodbyes, so goodbye bastard, and he poised his sword above his head as he leapt at Kakashi. Naruto watched helplessly as the Zanbato sliced Kakashi's shoulder causing blood to explode from the wound. Aw, I missed, Zabuza taunted as Kakashi fell to his knees in pain. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura called out to her sensei who gasped for breathe within the mist. Now to deal with our little pest problem, Zabuza spoke, disappearing from in front of Kakashi and reappearing behind Sakura and in front of Tazuna. The bridge builder made a run for it into the mist. Zabuza ignored her and struck Sakura in the back of the head with the hilt of his Zanbatu. The pink-haired girl fell faint to the ground as Naruto called out to her. Sakura. He called to her limp form. Zabuza turned to the blonde-haired boy and poised himself to attack. What do you say, Haku? Should I let him live? You said you thought he was good enough to train. Zabuza asked his accomplice who looked down at Naruto in pity and sorriness. Don't care if it isn't a real word. Keep him alive, Zabuza-sensei. He's too good to kill and he is too warm-hearted to ever be a true ninja, was the feminine boy's reply. Naruto looked up into Haku's eyes in search of answers. Well, Zabuza. You didn't kill the bridge builder, but you managed to bring down a legend, a whore, an emo kid and a blondie. Came Gato's voice as he appeared through the mist with many of his hired thugs. So there's no more need for you. We can deal with Tazuna by ourselves, the greedy little man promised. Haku shivered from the look Gato was giving him. Then we will take our leave, was the reply of the masked ex-Miss Nin. Leave? Gato asked. He soon broke into a large laugh and sneered at the two ninja. Who said anything about leaving? No dear Zabuza, you'll have to be dealt with, and your little servant. He trailed off looking at Haku with ravenous eyes. Doesn't it even bother you that I'm a boy? The ice user asked. Disgusted pervert, he called Gato. The short man screwed up his face in anger, but it soon turned into a sneer. Well then you will have to die just like Zabuza here. Over your dead body, came a familiar wheezing voice from behind Haku. Zabuza and Haku turned to see Naruto forcing himself to stand on his own 2 feet. His cuts and bruises healing nicely and his eyes burning with rage. Naruto, Haku spoke as he stood. A knife was thrown from Gato at Naruto. However, it merely landed at his feet helplessly. Naruto's eyes flashed red at his fallen comrades. His hands clenched and his nostrils flared open. The temperature fell with THW ground at Naruto's feet, freezing over instantly. Haku, stop, Zabuza commanded. It's not me, Haku insisted. It's Naruto. Haku's eyes widened in recognition. He's just like me. He is of Hyoton. That's impossible, the masked man demanded at his student as a dragon made of ice materialized before Naruto and all those in attendance. A demonic voice rang out from Naruto's mouth and cold and cruel laughter broke out from the boy. Now it's my turn, the voice drawled. Hyoton. Hyorimaru. The ice dragon shot towards Gato, who became frozen on a block of ice. The thugs around him fled only to be met with the same fate. A spired prison of ice exploded from around Naruto, cutting off his forehead protector, leaving it full limp in the ice. The demonic voice once again rang out into the world. Oh well, I don't have enough time. It spoke. Guess it's back to the seal. Hopefully the kid'll feel pain as I go back. The voice died down as red chakra turned an icy blue and Naruto fell to the ground in front of his sculpture of ice. What happened? He asked in a husky voice. You killed them, Haku replied, not looking away from Gato's frozen corpse or from the dead mercenaries. Naruto looked on wide-eyed at what he had done. Fear gripped him. He had lost consciousness and now all these people were dead. If the Leaf ever found out about this, then they waddled. Naruto dread to think about it. Zabuza saw the look of fear in his eyes and the look of fulfillment in Haku's. Under his mask he smirked and stood up to face. Hey kid, he called out to Naruto, a plan forming in his head. Flashback jutsu. Kai. Zabuza knew what was going on. The same thing happened when Gato attacked them on the bridge. The Kyuubi had gotten some degree of control over his vessel. Iruka and Sunade didn't see the changes until Naruto lifted up his head and he became covered in red and malicious chakra. Ah, Iruka-sensei. Long time no see. Your classes were always my favorite, Kyuubi spoke. Of course, I would have had more fun if I weren't trapped in this flea bag. Iruka paled at the notion of his communication with the 9-tailed demon fox. Stop it, he cried. Go back to the seal demon. Ow, that hurt, the Kyuubi goaded, but sensei, the kid is a bit unstable at the moment, you might want to get going before he and I go feral. Iruka did a very good impression of the Kyuubi growling at the moment. The demon merely chuckled before replying to the growl. Oh sensei, do me a favor. I will not let you get free, demon. Free? Who said anything about being free? I kinda like it in here. Tsunade and Iruka were caught off guard at that comment. The fox liked being in Naruto. It's a good life if you compare it to prison. All the ramen I want, and since I'm much smaller there's more for me. No need to go out hunting, a nice warm bath, no need to use the toilet, but it can get boring. If I had known I was going to get trapped in here, I would have brought a magazine or a book or two. This brat rarely reads. Frankly, I'm surprised he knows how to read. What do you want, fox? Tsunade demanded, walking over with her arm poised to smack Kyuubi Naruto at any time. If the kid agrees to go back with you, can Iruka-sensei take me out for ramen? Iruka added his impet. But what about revenge? Aren't you angry you were sealed away? And what? End up like the Uchiha kid? No thanks. I still have some shred of dignity and I won't waste it being all angst and broody. When the fox put it like that, it sorta made some sense. Who would want to be broody and angst like Sasuke? Keep an eye on him, sensei, or we'll both be sorry. Iruka kept his eyes on the body as Kyuubi's features dimmed and a groggy expression fell upon his face. Naruto's conscience returned to being the dominant one for the brief moment before he fell flat on his face. It probably had something to do with the Kyuubi taking over for short periods of time and emotional stress. Naruto's body fell faint into Tsunade's arms as his head fell into her breasts, treating them like a single large pillow. It was good few couple of hours before Naruto woke up again. This time it was Tsunade hovering over him with a damp towel to his forehead. You gave me quite a scare, young man, she told him, removing the rag and placing a kiss where it had once been. I guess you've never met me before, she said nervously. My name is Tsunade and I guess I'm your grandmother, huh? Naruto felt wetness at the corner of his right eyes. Sensei was an ass, she commented on the Sandaime Hokage not telling me you existed, let alone alive. I left when Minato first became Hokage. I would have visited, but by the time I could feel like returning he had died and the Kyuubi was stuck in your gut. I know it's no excuse and I'm sorry, had I any chance of time travel, then I would use it in a heartbeat, just to give you a better chance. Naruto remained silent as a couple of tears fell down the Hokage's face. The Council of Leaf want you back, Yuki-sen says you can have dual citizenship if you want. But you have a choice. Stay here and be marked as a missing nin by Konoha Council, you'll be fine from hunters, or you can go to Konoha and be a family with me and Shizune. I guess that makes her your second cousin as she was Dan's niece. Whirlpool, your mother's country may have wanted you back, unfortunately Whirlpool no longer exists, so those are your two choices. I won't think any less of you if you decide to stay. Tsunade stood up and traveled to the door. Just know this, she paused for what seemed like forever. Finally she mustered the strength to say the one thing Naruto had been waiting for all his life. I love you, and the lights went out, leaving Naruto alone in the dark. What if Naruto has Mokuton and Hyoton Harem? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.